This story is about Jade Bowen, the heiress to a prestigious magical family. It all starts back in ancient times, when the land was still a wasteland, lifeless and barren. From the silence of the skies, a god descended. The world's fate began to shift. The god's mission was to save all life on Earth. When the world finally bloomed, it decided to return to the heavens. Before leaving, the god left humanity with final gifts. The mortal it cherished above all was granted its mind. The one who came second in its heart was given a piece of its divine flesh, that is, raw physical power. The two chosen ones eventually became the first mage and knight in Earth's history, ushering in a brand new era. This story faded into a forgotten legend over the centuries. Eventually, the fates of a peasant girl who rose to become a knight and the head of a noble magical family became entwined, and gave birth to Jade Bowen, the protagonist of this story. After her parents' deaths, young Jade suddenly found herself as the head of the Bowen family. Her matriarch grandmother openly despised her granddaughter. At the funeral, she whispered that her son was a useless fool, leaving behind nothing but this child with tainted blood. The rest of the relatives were hungry to take her place. With no shame in their greed, Jade, fully aware of how shaky her position was, made a firm decision. She wouldn't back down. In her mind, fragments of memories about her parents flashed through. Those who always told their little girl she was their pride, and that they loved her. These memories were the last sparks of warmth in a cold world of magical schemes. One day, a tree suddenly burst into flames. A girl with two braids rushed over to Jade and angrily demanded to know if she was behind the fire. The main character was proud. She had every right to be called the heir of a lineage with a powerful magical gift and boundless potential. Jade proudly admitted she was the one who started the fire. Her determination was unshakable. No trials could break her spirit. The heroine came to her senses with a pounding headache in an unfamiliar place, struggling to grasp what was happening. The last thing she remembered was joining a monster hunt. Then she tried to move her limbs, but couldn't. With horror, she realized she was bound. Her magic wasn't working either, as if her mana reserves had completely run dry. The ropes that bound her looked ordinary, but without magic, escape was impossible. Only one option remained. Jade gritted her teeth. She wasn't about to back down. She was a fire mage whose name was known everywhere. This situation couldn't be her end. In her moment of despair, footsteps echoed. Someone was approaching. She frantically chanted spells, but it was all in vain. By their voices and manner of speaking, she recognized two people, a young man and a woman of middle age. The woman complained about the early visit, while the man cited a tight schedule and demanded things move faster. The heroine focused, mustering her last strength. The moment the woman opened the door, Jade bolted for freedom. She was happy she outsmarted the villain, but at the last second, it hit her. There were two enemies, not one. A strong hand suddenly cut off Jade's escape attempt. The second criminal hadn't lost his cool. He grabbed her up, and she started screaming and kicking, demanding to be let go. But the hold just got tighter. A cold male voice ordered her to stop moving, then muttered irritably that her wound was bleeding again. He warned her sharply not to dare stain the floor. Stunned, Jade screamed in anger that she didn't care about the kidnapper's germophobia. But all she got in response was laughter. The situation took an unexpected turn when the mysterious strangers declared they hadn't kidnapped her at all. They said they'd rescued her. Those words hit her like a ton of bricks. Jade couldn't remember that. Confusion clouded her eyes as she asked the strangers who they were. The man asked if she really didn't remember him pulling her out of the water. Jade tried to remember. Her head spun from the effort, and her vision suddenly went dark. At that moment, a fragment of that memory flickered in her mind, but she couldn't catch it. When the woman tried to help, Jade recoiled sharply, rejecting any contact. Her anger only grew. She shot back. "If you really wanted to help, why tie me up?" The gray-haired woman let out a wild, cackling laugh. The brunette explained the girl hadn't been tied up with ropes, just wrapped in a blanket to keep her warm and prevent her wounds from reopening. When the truth came out, the guy awkwardly apologized, saying it probably looked like restraints, then spilled out his good intentions. In the dark, Jade thought she'd been tied up with ropes. The awkward moment turned tense when her rescuers declared it was their turn to ask questions. They demanded answers. Who was she, and why had she snuck into this forest? The question came with a piercing stare. Jade flinched. The mention of the forest clearly threw her for a loop, and the woman told the guy the question was pointless. Plenty of folks visit the Athanasian forest, but the second the forest's name dropped, Jade froze. She couldn't believe she was in the Athanasian forest, a place every mage in her era had heard of from childhood. Her rescuers bickered. The guy insisted her presence there wasn't a coincidence. The woman dismissed the idea as pointless to stage an interrogation. Meanwhile, in Jade's head, memories of the three most vital places any self-respecting mage needed to remember popped up. First was the Florentine forest. It teemed with rare herbs and mystical creatures. Second, the Daliad forest, an historical site where a mage king left behind powerful magical traces. The third forest, unlike the first two, was a place strictly forbidden to all mages. Atanaski forest, a place where every trace of magic dies, turning even the strongest mage into a helpless fool. Jade could barely believe it was real. Her lips whispered, "It's got to be a dream." She stumbled, fell to her knees, the weight of her situation crashing down. The Atanaski forest meant losing everything that made her, her. One day, her grandmother called her in. Staring at her eldest son's portrait, she confessed, she loved Yannick more than anything. She remembered the bitter betrayal. Yannick had sold her out, made a deal with the king. The king rewarded Yannick by giving him a peasant knight, insulted her noble pride straight to the core. She'd never let common blood taint the Brone name. But Jade, half-blood but still carrying Yannick's line, forced her grandmother's hand. Brune heir by blood or not, she was the only one left. She made one demand. Any suitor had to come from a bloodline as noble as their own. Right then, Jade realized the choice in front of her. Become her grandma's obedient puppet, or bet it all on forging her own path. That second option? Risk dying for a chance at real freedom. Years passed. One day, Jade Brune stood before the king for her audience. She bowed low, voice steady. "Your Majesty, I'm Jade Brune, the fire mage who's here to claim my fate." The king rubbed his chin, sizing her up. "You're young," he noted. The heroine swallowed hard. This wasn't just small talk. After his bloody crown fight, this king systematically wiped out all traces of his brothers worldwide. The people called him the Ruthless Young King, a nickname that reminded them of what he paid to sit the throne. Straightforward as ever, the king cut to the chase. He offered her political backing in exchange for loyalty. "I'm already your subject," Jade replied. She declared she'd follow any order he gave. His royal decree? The monster hunt. Jade accepted with formal obedience. But behind her polite mask, some thoughts lingered. The heroine jolted awake, gasping, her eyes wide with shock. Jade realized she'd finally remembered everything. That day, like usual, she headed to the monster hunt, until her teleport magic glitched. She had to ride instead, which landed her in the forbidden Atanas forest, where magic was useless. Suddenly, the heroine heard a strange noise behind the door. She knew she had to get out, fast. The Atanas forest was a death trap for a magic user. Her steps quickened. Her body, stripped of magical protection, was now defenseless. The girl yanked the door handle with everything she had. The door suddenly flew open. Jade nearly lost her balance. But a hand shot out and grabbed her. Turns out it was one of her rescuers. The guy smirked and quipped how often she ran into obstacles. But Jade wasn't in the mood for jokes. Every second in this forest was dragging her closer to the grave. The heroine hadn't even realized until now how good-looking her rescuer was. Despite his rough edges, there was no denying his appeal. Those piercing gray eyes, the solid build, but his social skills? Crap. Jade mentally filed away her plan to cooperate. For now, while she waited for her chance to bolt. When he suddenly brought up her injury and headache, she replied with forced perkiness. That unexpected flicker of concern twisted something in her chest. Confusion, maybe even a little. Part of her was still annoyed by his attitude. The other part softened. Jade watched him prep the meal with curiosity, offering to pitch in. But he shot her a sharp glare. She was told to go wash up, smelled like rotting leaves. Naturally, the main character was hurt at first by the comparison. But after a while, she came back happy and all fluffed up from the bath. Jade was wearing borrowed clothes. The guy asked her to slice the bread. Her aristocratic background showed when she faced that plain black bread. That bread was totally foreign to the heiress raised in luxury. When Jade awkwardly tried to split the bread, her savior gave her a knowing look. He caught on she was raised in wealth, even as she tried to deflect by mentioning a rough childhood. She added that in tough times, you just ate the whole loaf. The guy said he'd believe it. Classic move for her. Those words lit Jade up. Then he set a bowl of soup in front of her. Her focus shifted to the bigger question, whether to eat that weird soup. Jade stole a glance at her savior. He was calmly eating the delicious-smelling soup. Gripping the spoon tightly, she tried the food he'd made. Shockingly, the soup wasn't just edible. It was unexpectedly good. The main heroine couldn't help but flash a happy smile, forgetting all about her suspicions of poison. The awkward silence dragged on. The guy just kept eating, so she introduced herself as Jade Brown, deliberately leaving out her real last name. He briefly introduced himself as Axel, which left Jade slightly disappointed. She couldn't believe he'd shared so little about himself. Jade thanked him for saving her and helping out, then apologized for saying it a bit late. But there was something she had to ask. Something she couldn't help but bring up. Jade asked if they were actually in the Atanas forest. When Axel instantly called her a mage, She calmly confirmed his guess, but his sharp eyes caught her off guard. He clearly knew more about magic than your average guy. But when she straight up asked about getting out of the forest, Axel just shook his head. Then he shot back a question. Did she know why this place was called the Hermit's Forest? Jade had no clue. The guy explained the forest was literally alive. Its borders kept shifting, and trails just disappeared. Anyone who dared step in risked getting stuck here forever. Axel gave her a sliver of hope. Turns out, there were traders who'd been coming into this forest for generations. These traders had the inside scoop on hidden trails and landmarks that never moved. Jade perked up instantly. She latched onto the idea and decided to stick around until she met those traders. Turns out the forest's biggest treasure is these super rare animals and plants. Traders risk their lives coming here just for a shot at them. Jade's hope tanked when Axel dropped the truth. These goods don't grow on trees here. Traders only swing by once a season. He added they left just days ago and won't be back for months. Jade hit rock bottom. She knew she was stuck here for the long haul. Axel just smirked, tossing out that she could wait somewhere else. He had plenty of his own stuff to handle till next season. Jade wasn't about to let his attitude slide and shot back with her own good news. With a grin, she declared she'd be staying right here with Axel, hoping he'd be a good host. But the guy? Zero reaction. So Axel and Jade's co-housing experiment began, though it was more like a comedy of errors. One afternoon, Axel came home to find leaves swirling down like crazy. He looked up and spotted Jade hanging upside down from a tree branch. She claimed she was testing if magic worked differently when you're upside down high up. Next day, Jade's thread compass experiment ended in a tangled mess and Axel yelling in panic. By day 3, Axel found her laughing awkwardly. Another one of her wild plans had flopped. On the 4th day, Axel's patience snapped. He shouted that he'd had enough. Jade defended her choice to get out of the woods no matter what. But the irritated Axel reminded her that even he wouldn't risk the forest without a map. His words only made her more determined. When he tried to leave again, the girl quickly offered to tag along and check out the local trails. Axel refused to take Jade. She asked why, but he said the truth would hurt. Jade demanded the truth and said she didn't care if it hurt. He said she'd slow him down and was no help with chopping wood or hunting. The rejection bruised Jade's pride, but didn't break her resolve. She struck a deal, tag along only to the wood-cutting spot, and promised to stay quiet. She added a dramatic please, with a sparkle in her eyes. Axel sighed, gave in, but warned her to stay quiet. The moment she stepped into the forest, she let out a loud, excited cheer. She'd discovered rare herbs and healing plants. Her herbalist instincts kicked in, overriding any fears. Jade declared she couldn't wait another second and started harvesting everything, ignoring her earlier vow to stay quiet. Axel watched in silence as her careful hands plucked each stem, every motion shouting her expertise. She admitted she got into herbalism because she couldn't cut it with earth magic or healing. After spilling that, Jade steered the conversation to Axel, since his knowledge of mages and shady past had her scratching her head. But he just kept walking in silence, leaving her questions hanging. As they trudged along, Jade was thinking about the Atanaskoya forest, called a god-forsaken land, a hermit hideout. Yet Axel didn't look like a runaway or a criminal, more like a hermit who'd picked this place on purpose. Jade remembered the sword she'd seen by the fireplace in Axel's place. It was plain, but packing a serious punch. That detail had her thinking he might have been a knight, a damn strong one at that. Deciding to test her theory, she tried to lift his axe, telling herself she could crush it. But the axe was a beast. Jade barely kept her balance as Axel watched with a raised eyebrow. Her stubbornness kept her from giving up right away, but her attempts to swing it ended in a total fail. The axe nearly took her down. She almost face-planted into the sharp end. Axel caught her just in time. He chewed her out for being reckless, called her an idiot, and asked if she really needed to put herself in danger. Jade mumbled something about being the type who has to try it themselves to realize they can't. He got mad and told her to go home. Then she asked if he could show her the way to Ollie's place. Jade finally met Ollie, the guy who once convinced Axel to save her and bring her to the house. Their first meeting started with a compliment about her glowing eyes, which Jade happily accepted. She proudly mentioned her beautiful eye color, introduced herself as Jade Brown, and handed over medicine made from wild herbs. Jade asked why Axel and Ollie were living out here in the woods, but hadn't chosen to stay closer together. In Jade's opinion, it'd be safer and easier to share supplies. Ollie admitted they'd run here, fed up with people. She added they preferred solitude over any conveniences, so why live together? That answer made Jade wonder. What had worn Axel and Ollie down in their past lives? Ollie said she was lucky to find Axel. He might be irritable, but he's not heartless. Her main advice was to let time slow down and just rest. Jade looked baffled by Ollie's words. To someone used to endless tasks and duties, the idea of doing nothing felt foreign to her. Meanwhile, the Browen family estate had its own drama brewing. Some character grumbled when he found every attempt to profit while Jade was gone had been shut down tight. Even choosing a trade team for deals with their estate was impossible without her say. The situation boiled over when a stunning girl walked into the office and called the man father. He addressed her as Asella and coldly asked why she'd come. She, worried, asked if he'd found Jade. He gave a vague reply. Someone must have already given the search order. Asella wondered aloud if her dad really didn't want to look for Jade. Dad shouted there were more important things to handle right now, and then admitted he'd hoped to get rid of Jade for good. When Asella told him to chill out and slow his roll, Dad called her naive. He stepped closer, called her his beautiful girl, and grabbed her chin. He laid out the price for her quiet life. The family estate, dozens of servants, a fat dowry to secure a good marriage. The real punch came next. He belittled her by comparing her to Jade, reminding her that at least that girl had top-tier fire magic. His fingers dug into her cheeks as he coldly noted her complete lack of basic magical talent. He added she didn't have enough mana to fill a puddle and squeeze tighter. Finally letting her go, she choked out that she'd accept even this humble fate. Dad glared at her and snapped that she only said this because she'd never known hardship. He grumbled it wasn't freedom. It was suffering, and told her to snap out of it and realize they were in this together. He bluntly stated Jade Brown wasn't needed anymore if they wanted to keep living large. He coldly confirmed he'd gotten rid of her. Azella's voice shook as she asked if he was really serious. Dad sneered that they were bound by blood, and no one would believe her story. He said flatly he hoped Jade disappeared or lost her arms and legs, but if there were no news, he'd arrange a proper funeral. The guy said it so casually, like he was talking about the weather. His eyes held nothing but impatience. He was waiting for the girl's disappearance to give him the green light. Asella remembered her childhood, how little Jade had eagerly pointed upward and insisted they climb up there. Asella said no way. Their dad would flip if the girls weren't acting like proper ladies. The blonde kid scoffed. Pfft, nonsense. We're way too young to be ladies. She tugged Azella's sleeve again. Come on, let's decorate that treehouse. Meanwhile, the main character was dreaming. Someone called her Jade Bowen, asking if she was really Yannick's daughter. The voice said the Bowen heirs had always been multi-talented. But Jade? Only fire magic. The voice sneered. If you were a real Bowen heir, you wouldn't be so clueless. Maybe you took after your mom? Or you're not even Yannick's kid. Every word hit harder than a punch. Jade snapped, I am the Bowen heir! Her voice cracked on the last word. Even as she said it, she looked unsure. The verdict dropped. The voice hissed, You're not worthy. Jade shot back. I'm a mage the king himself recognized. All I need is the coming-of-age ceremony. She was almost screaming, trying to convince herself more than whatever was listening. Her eyes held fear. If she failed, the voice mocked. How do you plan to get to the ceremony when you're stuck here forever? Jade's eyes went wide. Her plans? Gone. She was trapped in a cage. The heir had become a prisoner. The main character jolted awake. Oh yeah, that's why she was always exhausted. Those stupid dreams. A bitter smile crossed her face. Even if these dreams didn't really bother her, she was used to hearing stuff like this. One day, Jade was brewing a potion while Axel studied it closely. Then he gave his approval. No foam, and the color's good. Looks like you're getting the hang of it, Jade. The heroine asked the guy not to mention the potion's ingredients to Ollie. Oh, and by the way, the girl was wearing Ollie's clothes. Axel headed for the door. Jade asked when he'd be back. The guy didn't take it as a sign of concern. Before sunset, he said. Jade called after him to stay safe. No response. After a few days in the forest, the heroine slowly got used to the lifestyle. When Axel was gone, she'd brew potions or clean up. Jade visited Ollie during the day to lend a hand or catch up. One day, the older woman shared how she met her husband. Ollie admitted the start was anything but romantic. She'd been all aggressive and hot-headed back then. She added that she'd been so cold to him he cried every day. But eventually, she fell for him. The heroine asked where the woman's husband was now. Ollie said he was dead, passed away peacefully, no pain. The woman clarified he'd been dead for ages. No need to make that face. Better feed the goats instead. When saying goodbye, Ollie handed Jade a fruit crate. The girl was thrilled. Ollie had explained earlier it made a super sweet jam. Jade couldn't wait to taste it. Well, Axel's probably the one doing the cooking. But the heroine's eyes went wide like she just found treasure right under her feet. Jade shouted, These are yellow deer mushrooms, super rare stuff for healing potions. Her fingers trembled. Too nervous to touch them. She'd paid a fortune for a chunk the size of a fingernail, but her excitement shattered when a few green droplets plopped down from above. She snapped her head up. Her eyes almost popped out of her skull. Right in front of her, a monster plant. She mentally groaned. If only she could use her magic, this tiny annoyance wouldn't be a problem. But since that wasn't an option, Jade's best move was to book it. Problem was, the plant had not just claws, but paws. So chasing her down was a total cakewalk for the beast. Jade's mind raced. Was she really about to die this stupidly? Her scream faded. Its massive tongue was crushing tighter around her throat. She squeezed her eyes shut, completely missing the blinding light beam that suddenly appeared. Strong hands wrapped around her body. Jade's eyes flew open. Axel. He scolded her for the obvious fact that she always gets into trouble. Jade blushed with anger and demanded to know how Axel even found out she was there. Was he following her or something? The reply was just a heavy sigh and an explanation that she was yelling so loud, the echo spread through the whole forest. The savior added it would have been weird if he hadn't heard her. Then the guy asked how long Jade planned to stay perched on his hands, and Jade immediately screamed at the top of her lungs, demanding he let her go. Back home, the main character kept replaying the day in her head, but couldn't believe she'd almost died from such a pathetic monster. Under normal circumstances, she'd have incinerated the thing. But now she finally got why people say mages shouldn't end up in the Atanas forest. Axel suddenly walked up and asked, "Where'd you get stuck? Ollie said you left way earlier." Jade admitted she'd found rare mushrooms and lost track of time. She apologized for causing trouble. She'd been an idiot. The guy said, "I forgot to warn you. Monsters here love mages as a snack." Those words crushed her last bits of confidence. She never thought she'd end up at the bottom of the food chain. She'd always been on top. Axel cut her off sharply. "Enough talk. Take off your boot." Jade panicked. "What are you doing?" He replied, "Told you. Your ankle's swollen. You're clearly not walking right." The heroine was confused. It was weird. She hadn't even complained. "How'd you notice?" she asked. Axel asked sarcastically. "You trying to say I got it wrong? With that ankle?" The girl immediately backpedaled. "I didn't mean that." Then the heroine admitted, remembering how she'd never hidden her weaknesses or vulnerable sides from others. The guy snapped, saying it was stupid. The heroine shot back. "What's stupid? Axel doesn't even know how hard her life is. She has to hide her weaknesses." He shrugged coldly. "Does it really matter to me?" He added, "I'm not going to turn around and use her weaknesses against her. You don't need to stress over that." He softened his voice. "Just tell me if it hurts. I'll help." The heroine, unsure and confused, asked, "You gonna save me again if I'm in trouble?" He shrugged. "What else is there? Let the girl die?" When Jade said she couldn't repay him, he blinked. "You think I help people just for payback?" Then the heroine asked, "You gonna come get me if I get stuck again?" He shot back with a sarcastic, "Maybe just stay home then, if it's so dangerous out there." Next day, Jade was in the kitchen. She proudly announced, "Dinner's ready." Axel grumbled, "What the hell is that? Toss it." Jade protested, "No way! These eggs were from Ollie. They're priceless." She argued, "It might look gross, but it's gotta taste good." He smirked. "Then eat it yourself." Jade shot back, clearly annoyed that the guy didn't get how valuable food really was. So the heroine gave her dish a try. It turned out it wasn't totally gross. She dug in, and Axel, watching her, muttered, "You sure you weren't starving back then?" Jade snapped back, "My table's always been stacked with all kinds of food." The guy noted to himself her speech, behavior, and manners didn't fit a fancy upbringing. Axel figured Jade didn't end up here by chance. He pressed her. "We need to figure out who's behind this when you get back." Jade was surprised he brought it up, then admitted, "I've got a bunch of suspects already." In fact, she'd already jotted down a whole list of possible enemies. He dryly remarked, "Guess our partner here's got a lot of people hating on them." And she nodded. Turns out the enemy list was so long, it was hard to pick the main villain. For the first time in a while, the heroine let herself think about the past. Those thoughts gave her a heavy chest. She quickly shifted the conversation back to food, saying, "Let's just focus on eating." But the meal couldn't go on. Axel pointed out her face was literally glowing. Jade suddenly felt awful, barely hearing Axel's shouts. It was like his voice was coming through a tube. Jade's condition quickly got worse. She started swaying, finally realizing she was probably sick. Jade collapsed without a sound, and Axel barely caught her in time. He gently laid her on the bed and applied a cold compress. Later, Ollie arrived and said the monster encounter was inevitable. Axel regretted not warning the girl sooner. Ollie reminded him the event had already happened, and there was nothing to change now. Ollie explained the monsters of Atanaski Forest were fundamentally different from regular ones. These creatures are deeply tied to the forest itself and completely block magic, reacting to it with extreme aggression. Such encounters are especially dangerous for mages. Contact with these creatures causes them excruciating pain. Jade, being a mage, wasn't an exception and suffered the same. Ordinary folks only ended up with a short fever. But for Jade, as a mage, the consequences of the forest monster encounter were far worse. The heroine came to coughing and struggled to utter a few slurred words. Axel and Ollie watched her with worry, wondering how she was feeling now. Out of nowhere, the girl declared her magic was back. After all, the room was on fire. She assumed it was her fault. Axel was in shock, but Ollie quickly calmed them, explaining the room wasn't on fire. Jade's body, however, was definitely radiating heat. Ollie whispered quietly that poor Jade was delirious. Axel gave strict orders for Jade to stay home and not leave, so she wouldn't get into trouble again. But Ollie snorted and pointed out that for someone as energetic as Jade, his request was pretty much impossible. Jade, even though she was drained, found the strength to back up the woman's words. That made Axel annoyed. He snapped, "Still got enough energy to yap?" Axel muttered something about mages under his breath. Jade started to wonder, did the guy really hate them that much? Then she remembered he'd never called her by name before. For some reason, she just felt like he was on her side, but she quickly brushed the thought aside, thinking it was just her imagination. Plus, her head was pounding. The heroine had a nightmare about her past, when she realized no one had ever supported her. Memories took her back to the Broen family garden 7 years ago, where she played with her best friend, Asella. The girl leaned over an injured bird, whispered a spell. The wound closed up in a flash, and the bird flew up like nothing happened. Stunned, Jade gasped, "That's insane! How'd you learn healing magic?" Asella shrugged, asking if it was really that shocking. She replied it had only been recent, and turned out to be easier than she thought. Then came the question of whether Jade wanted to learn it. She scratched her head and sighed. "I'd love to, but it's pointless." She added she had zero talent for earth magic, but Asella encouraged her, saying the key was not to be greedy. "Then everything would work out, even if you're missing something." She added, "I'm 100% sure you're not greedy. You're way too sweet." Jade asked who said that, and Asella replied it was her dad. Azella's dad, Jade's uncle, the man who rejected his niece right after her parents died. Uncle Felix used to seem nice to Jade, but changed drastically after losing his brother. She thought his coldness was from grief, not a real desire to push her away, but she was wrong. The conversation shifted to memories of Uncle Felix's favorite tree. Asella confirmed her dad had grown it from a sapling. Jade gave a sly smile and whispered a spell just barely audible, but Asella didn't see anything. Suddenly, the tree burst into flames like a match. Asella asked her friend, "Was that you?" The young mage smiled and proudly declared, "Yeah!" Soon, furious Sir Felix and his assistant burst into the garden, eyes wide in shock. The man barked, "What in the world is going on here?" Asella whispered urgently to her friend, "Hurry up and put the fire out." Jade called out to her friend and insisted, "Remember to tell him he's really greedy and pass it along to your dad." Her voice held a strange mix of anger and desperation. Something foreign and terrifying flickered in her eyes. The girl said she was a really bad kid, so she's making a dead serious promise. No one's taking anything from her, ever. Those same words came out of sick Jade's mouth right now, all mumbled in her sleep. Axel noted with his usual exhaustion that the girl wasn't all there yet and wiped sweat from her face. A little while later, Ollie burst into laughs and said she never would have guessed Axel would go this far. The guy asked in a steady voice, "Didn't the woman dump everything on him to take care of Jade?" Then he added in a quiet tone that he was partly to blame for this mess, like he was confessing to himself more than to Ollie. In his head, Axel admitted he should have told the girl more about this forest from the start. The young man promised the woman he'd be back soon. His voice had a determined edge, though his eyes stayed dark. Suddenly, Jade jolted. Someone was repeating her name and urging her to wake up. The heroine wondered why that voice was so loud. She blinked open her eyes and froze instantly. Her nose was nearly touching Axel's back. A panic thought flashed through her head. Just a few inches separated her from him. She snapped back in outrage, "Why are we this close?" and yanked her body away, barely staying balanced. The guy hissed in irritation, "Don't jerk around, it's dangerous here," and pulled her tighter. Axel let Jade carefully turn her head downward. A deep chasm gaped under them, wind whistling in her ears. The girl gasped, then her voice cracked into a scream, "Let me go!" But the guy snapped at her, telling Jade to calm down, or she'd die if she fell off his back. Then Axel barked at the girl to shut up. Monsters could attack him. The heroine grumbled, "Why'd you drag me here?" He said they were in a split ravine deep in the woods. There's supposed to be some grass called lap something. He asked if the girl knew anything about it. The flower's good for detox. Jade, still shaking, guessed he meant the Lapasian flower. The girl remembered it. It looked weird, grotesque, like a monster. The guy swallowed hard. Now they had to find that creepy flower to neutralize the poison in Jade's body. They ran into a bunch of different flowers, but nothing matched. Turns out, it was harder than he thought. Axel sighed, exhausted. He'd planned to be back before sunset. Noted Jade's breathing was all over the place. Even with his back to her, Axel could feel how hot his companion was. He figured she might not make it through the night. The guy decided to force a chat, told the girl to say something, added that she liked to talk nonstop. The girl whispered, "How'd you know about the Lapasian flower? Even I didn't know it did that." The guy admitted a mage told him. Jade couldn't believe it. Had some mage actually come here before? But the question got met with silence. The girl figured Axel hated mages because of that encounter. The heroine bristled. Axel wouldn't share anything about himself. All she knew was his name, and even that might be a fake. Jade sighed, knowing this didn't involve her anymore once she left the forest. Axel smacked her face. "What was that for?" He reminded her. "You know, no one in this forest talks about the past." She scowled and pouted. He shrugged. "Don't overreact to everything," he added. "This worries me." Her heart skipped a beat. Axel frowned. "You're usually talkative. This is bothering me." He tried asking what was wrong. She snapped, "Stop hiding things from me." Their argument carried on until a sudden crash made them freeze and fall silent. Suddenly, claws seized her. Before she could scream, she was yanked high into the air. Looking up, she spotted a monster's snarling face. Turns out it wasn't one or two. There was a whole pack. Chaos erupted. Jade screamed as claws raked her, tearing through her flesh. She knew they were toying with her, like a cat with a mouse, dragging out her pain. She had one thought: escape the claws. But if she broke free, she'd plunge into the ravine below. The heroine's screams echoed through the ravine. She had no strength left and no clue what to do next. She didn't see what her partner was about to do. A sudden sharp sound shattered the silence. Axel hurled his sword, slicing off the monster's claw. Jade plummeted into the abyss. Her voice was drowned out by the wind. Axel leaped to save his partner. Jade watched as the guy pushed off the rock, defying fate. He made it. His strong grip encircled Jade's body. He caught her and his sword midair. Jade wondered how Axel had gotten there so fast. The young man reached the cliff with effortless grace, leaping over the monsters. He yanked her arm, shoving her into the narrow gap between rocks. "Inside!" he barked, his voice like grinding steel. Clutching his sword, he tossed over his shoulder, not looking back. "I'll return after I handle this," Jade thought. No matter how tough Axel was, could one lone traveler take out so many monsters? Her voice shook with anger. "You need to hide as well," she told him. She proposed waiting for the monsters to fly off. Axel replied, cutting her off. "The good stuff's right here. Why would they fly off?" Jade winced at his words, but Axel stayed cold, not noticing her darkened mood. He straightened up, muttering that there was nothing to worry about now that he'd taken the heavy load off his back. Jade boiled over and shouted in frustration. Axel didn't explain, just lunged forward sharply. The girl shrugged, figuring the guy could do whatever he damn well pleased. She stepped a little deeper and gasped. Something had caught her eye. Closer to dusk, Axel finally finished off the monsters. His hands and clothes were soaked in blood. Not his own, but the monsters. He knew if he showed up like this, Jade would only get worse. A few moments later, Axel stepped into the cave and asked the girl how she was doing. The girl lit up at his arrival and excitedly blurted out she had something to show him. Jade suddenly spun around, calling Axel over, then froze, then whirled away and barked, "Why's the guy half naked?" His face twisted between confusion and irritation. "You think I took off my shirt for fun?" he snapped. He roughly wiped his face, smearing sweat. "I was trying to keep monster blood off you," he growled, "so you wouldn't get worse." The girl blushed, looked away and mumbled, "If that's it, go ahead and put your shirt back on," because she'd found it. He turned toward where Jade was pointing. His eyes went wide. The very Lapasian flower that could save her was lying there. The Lapacia flower is known for powerful cleansing properties, but it loses its potency within 10 minutes. That's why Axel brought her along, even though she wasn't feeling well. But who knew he'd be hiding in a tough spot between those boulders? When Axel was already getting dressed, annoyed, the girl said she thought she'd heard somewhere that this flower grows where there's no sunlight. Her partner blew up. Why hadn't she said this earlier? She apologized, saying her head wasn't right, and she only remembered now. So the heroine bit into a petal of this rare flower, and suddenly the sick girl's fever broke. Jade was stunned, but she wanted to know, was this permanent? How long did it last? Axel scanned the area and figured nothing could be seen from outside. It was pitch black out there. Pale Jade asked why it was so cold here. The decision came fast. He announced they'd wait until the sun rose before heading back. Then Axel hurried over to Jade, really not wanting to resort to this. But it was needed to keep her body heat up. The heroine was completely baffled. Jade handed Axel her blanket and suggested he give it to his partner. He might be faking that he's fine, but she figured he was cold too. The guy snorted and told her to use it herself. Axel was ticked off that the girl held back the flower's location. If she'd spilled it sooner, none of this would have happened. Still, he couldn't let her freeze to death. But his face stayed just as sour. Jade said she wasn't giving him the blanket now, not even if he begged with tears. Axel snapped and yelled that it wasn't giving up. Jade knew this wasn't about warmth. It was a battle of wills. The guy said if a small group's cut off, they need to take action. The girl asked naively, "Do we start using fire magic?" He dryly said she couldn't use magic. Then Jade, still naive, suggested building a fire. Axel rolled his eyes and snapped, "How do you build a fire here? Is fire all you think about?" Jade, desperate, asked, "What do we do now?" The guy finally said, "Body heat's key, it's obvious." He grumbled, "You need to scoot closer to keep your body heat." She froze, then hesitantly shifted closer and asked, "Like this?" His voice was firm as he said, "Closer." She froze. "You kidding? Why don't you move closer?" she asked. He shot back, "Who do you think's gonna freeze to death today? Hint, it's not me." Axel told her to get as close as possible. Jade's breath hitched. The girl was shaking like crazy from the cold, but still clung to her pride. She couldn't scoot any closer, so she just bit it out. An awkward silence settled. Jade tried to remember. What had they even been talking about before? She stole a glance at him, but he just sighed heavily, like he was trying to get his thoughts together too. Then he broke the quiet, calling her name. Jade flinched, not getting where he was going with this. Finally, the guy managed to phrase his question clearly. He asked why his partner's name was Jade. She blinked. Where the heck did that come from? Axel said the name was usually linked to that green crystal. He tilted his head, studying her eyes. Clearly not green. Jade froze, then whispered her name was a mismatch. She'd inherited her eye color from her mom. She added that her grandma had hated it. That old woman had chosen the name for her granddaughter. He figured she didn't like her name, but Jade said it wasn't that. She had to do something, carry it forward. Actually, it's the opposite, Jade snapped. She refused to be a puppet anymore. His voice went sharp and unshakable. She decided she'd fight for her real place. That'd be the best revenge. At that moment, the guy realized how different she was. For the first time, he saw her not as a victim, but someone who could push back. He didn't say it aloud, just snorted. But his eyes held no mockery, only this strange respect. He quickly said it was fine, Jade should show them. The girl smiled. This guy actually said her name right, no mocking or messing it up. Axel using her name made her way happier. She was glowing. Axel figured if everything Jade said was true, neither of them had a normal childhood. Axel was torn. On one hand, Jade acted more like a noble than anyone else, but on the other, her behavior was often out of line. He sighed. Jade got way too caught up in what he thought sometimes. When he suggested tracking down whoever sent her into the woods after they got back, she waved it off like nothing happened. Axel finally connected the dots, remembering Jade once said she wanted out of this forest as fast as possible. He laid it out. She needed to take charge of her family. She calmly said, "Exactly." She muttered Ollie's words, "Sometimes you can take a breather," then shook her head. She couldn't afford it. She said time was running out. All they could do was wait for traitors. But she'd still try to find a way out. The heroine smiled, saying the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Axel shook his head. Did Jade even know what compromise meant? He thought, in a way, her words were admirable. But if he walked away, monsters would devour her. The guy sighed heavily, so Jade lit up like a fire and snapped, "How could he sigh like he's bored while she's explaining important stuff?" The girl called him a jerk and started lunging at him with fists, so Axel asked, "What's her problem?" The guy convinced his chatmate to chill and listen. There's another way out of the woods. He added they don't need to wait for traitors. One of the forest locals has a map of the outskirts. Right then, Jade's eyes lit up with interest. She jumped on Axel with questions. Why didn't he say this earlier? Who is this guy? Where does he live? But his answer killed her vibe. He admitted the catch is he doesn't know where the guy lives. She froze, her face deadpan with confusion, then screamed that the guy's saying he only met him once during his whole time in the forest. Then the guy declared it was time to end the chat. It's way too late. They needed to get ready for bed. They had to get up early tomorrow, so they needed to hit the sack soon. Axel promised to leave Jade behind if she didn't wake up on time. The girl whined that Axel just gave her a sleep killer. Now she couldn't shut her eyes. The guy figured calming her down would be a pain. But a few minutes later, he heard her peaceful snoring. He decided to gently tuck her in with a blanket, whispering she must be worn out and drained. When the first sunlight hit the ground, Axel started shaking her awake, saying it was time to hit the road. Jade begged for 5 more minutes. Axel threatened to leave her to the monsters if she didn't get up right now. It worked. Jade woke up confused, not immediately realizing she'd been hugging a guy in her sleep. Turns out the guy had been watching her sleep all night, clinging to him for warmth. They hit the road earlier than usual. Jade was surprised by the early start, but Axel explained the monsters in the ravine are less active in the mornings. That raised a new question. Why don't the monsters even attack him? She figured he was using some kind of protective cologne. Axel mumbled something about whether that even exists. She shot back she had no clue, but was sure he could get rich selling it. Axel's tone turned serious when he explained the monsters used to attack him too. He clarified that after he'd slaughtered them enough, they started running at the mere sight of him. Jade snorted and teased, calling him a deer and saying his reputation's in the crapper if even monsters avoid him. Axel just grunted and deadpanned. Don't you think you said something you shouldn't have? The characters kept moving, and Jade noticed leaves were already falling from the trees. Guess she'd been sick so long, she didn't realize how much time had passed. But in that time, she'd learned one key thing. The Adanaski forest is hostile to mages, but listens to knights. She'd picked that up from Axel, who the monsters don't attack, and didn't even get sick from them. Jade wondered, if knights and mages are blessed by the same god, why does the forest treat them so differently? Axel suddenly called out to Jade. She started making excuses, knowing full well Axel would leave her here for the monsters if she didn't speed up. The guy said that wasn't what he meant. As she ran closer, he told her to take a look around. The heroine was met with a stunning view of a blue lake with crystal clear water, but for some reason, Axel barked that they needed to head back. Jade was thrilled. She was dying for a drink. Axel reacted instantly, grabbing Jade's wrist, spinning her around, and snapping, "Are you out of your mind?" Jade started arguing that she was just thirsty. He shot back, "You know what this lake is, right?" The guy wondered if Jade was still out of it. Since this was the very lake someone had pushed her into, this lake is connected to the Atanaski forest. That fact alone said a lot about the people who attacked Jade. They knew the terrain. They had a plan, played it safe, and counted on her dying. Everyone knows if you fall in that lake, you're toast. Jade finally got the weight of what he'd just said. Axel said they had to find another path around the lake, but Jade cut him off. She was dying to know how she'd even survived if the place was so dangerous. After her question, a silence hung. Clearly, Axel's mind was replaying that heroic rescue. Finally, he broke his silence and growled, "You'd be dead right now if it wasn't for me." He added she'd be monster chow the second she took one step in this forest on her own. Axel started in on Jade, saying she couldn't sense the forest's danger and was basically a monster magnet. He called her out for her attitude and ungratefulness, reminding her he'd already saved her twice. Jade shot back that he was just as responsible for getting them into this mess by bringing her here in the first place. Jade was confused why he was so mad at her. The guy added that no one else was going to want to help her. Then Jade perked up and started pressing Axel, saying he wouldn't leave her, that he'd keep saving her in the future. The guy flat out refused. Then Jade blurted out that Axel couldn't just abandon her. Her voice carried hurt and confidence that her partner would never betray her. Now the story shifts to the Browen estate. Some guy was so rushed and furious, he accidentally bumped into a maid and mumbled an apology. Turns out he was heading straight for Felix Browen's office, Jane's uncle. Viewers are about to meet Bernard, Jade's former advisor. In a rage, he shouted the big news. The transport mage was dead, but Felix brushed it off as nothing. Meanwhile, others were clearly worried. After all, the clan head was missing. Bernard came in with accusations, calling it a serious matter. Felix just scoffed, calling it a triviality. He made excuses about being busy with important stuff and forgetting to inform the public. The man was furious at the negligence. His rage was so intense, another character had to step in. It turned out to be a young accountant, Maury Abush, who had to give Bernard a light slap to get him to cool off. The tension broke. Bernard sighed heavily, and Maury asked if the man had come to his senses yet. The advisor apologized for his outburst, admitting he was harsh. The accountant replied with understanding, saying their feelings were similar, but the anxiety didn't fade. Bernard couldn't accept the idea of the clan head being gone. He kept bugging Felix. "How can you stay calm with Jade gone?" Bernard remembered how 7 years ago, those events landed him working for Jade Bowen. A commoner was accused of stealing the Viscount's pocket watch. The nobleman shouted in anger, "Does the commoner even know how much those watches cost?" Onlookers in shock said it was insane, how the Viscount made that poor guy strip in the weather just to search him. Someone pointed out the Viscount was notorious for his terrible temper. That explains the aggressive interrogation methods. Everyone just watched and muttered how unlucky that guy was, when a cold, sharp female voice cut through the air. The hooded woman snapped, "Enough!" then asked, "What's the price of the stolen pocket watch?" She pulled down her hood and declared, "The Bowen family will pay for the watch. The Viscount can send the bill to them." Left alone with the suspect, Jade puzzled. "Why didn't you say anything during the interrogation?" He mumbled anxious questions, asking for clarifications like he didn't get it and was trying to buy time. Jade was confused. She was sure the guy didn't take them. She'd seen the kid clutching the watches with her own eyes. The man asked in a sad tone, "Is the girl really trying to arrest him for lying to a noble?" Jade shook her head, then suddenly asked why the guy tried helping that kid. The innocent man humbly said he just did what he had to. Sketched a skeptical reply. That's noble, but you could have skipped it. She added there were plenty of bystanders, but he was the only one who moved forward. So no matter how you look at it, she can't just let him go. He got tense and asked what she meant. She declared she was looking for righteous folks to help and invited him to come along. Bernard admitted without her. He's lost. Everything's meaningless now. Maury added he's worried too, but right now they need to stay clear of conflicts with Sir Felix, since he's hunting for excuses to get rid of Lady Jade's people. Bernard energetically stammered that he doesn't care about the backroom power fight. Now's not the time to hang around doing nothing. He said he'll definitely dig up everything about Lady Jade's disappearance. Maury said he'll help. In his head, Bernard pleaded for Lady Jade to be okay and safe. The characters returned after a long, purposeful day to Ollie's home. Ollie warmly welcomed them and invited them to the table. Axel exclaimed in surprise, asking what the celebration was for. Ollie said they must be starving. Plus, she was thrilled they returned unharmed. Jade was happily trying every dish and shouting how delicious everything was. Axel told her to chew and not talk with her mouth full. Then the girl remembered she wanted to ask the guy for more details about the person with the map, since he hadn't told her everything yesterday. Ollie curiously asked which map they were talking about. Axel admitted he told Jade about the oddball. Turns out it's a nickname traders gave the guy linked to the map. That's what they call him. They'd never sell that map to anyone, because it was super valuable and crucial due to the constantly shifting forest layout. But the oddball would do anything to get it. Traders said once he trapped them and threatened them. Rumors say he's an old guy who keeps moving around, exploring and studying the forest's anomalies. He also uses a magic stone to defend against monsters. At that, Jade almost choked on her tea. She was shocked. Axel quickly explained that regular human magic doesn't work in the forest, but magic in the stone does. That suggests the stone is key to surviving the dangerous zone. Jade declared she had to get her hands on that magic stone. But Axel told the girl not to cause unnecessary trouble trying to find it. The guy wrapped up by saying that's all he knew. It's impossible to know where that oddball is now. The girl thought she finally found a way out of this forest, but nobody knows where that old man is now. Ollie said she had to leave, finally decided to give Jade some advice. Waiting for traders is faster than tracking down that weirdo. Some time had passed since that talk at Ollie's, but Jade was still sullen. Axel came back from the hunt and wondered if he should try to cheer her up. He'd been so taken by what Jade said that night in the cave that now he couldn't think of a decent thing to say to comfort her. Out of the blue, Jade broke her silence and asked Axel, didn't he say that oddball old guy was snooping around strange stuff in the woods? She figured she could track him down near those weird spots. Axel raised an eyebrow. Wait, so their new plan is to hunt down the weirdo in those strange locations? Axel deadpanned. Real solid plan, that is. Jade beamed. I'll show you the Fire Mage's iron will, Axel. Axel shrugged. Fine. Only then did Jade remember. Axel hated mages. But Jade wasn't about to give up. That night, she laid out why fire mages aren't like other mages. She declared all the bad rap comes from those tiny, clumsy water mages. People think mages just sit around reading books all day, all bony and weak because they depend on magic. Jade proudly proclaimed, I'm different. She turned to show off her brawny arms from monster hunting. She added that reading all day gave her headaches. Axel smirked. Trying to brag about being dumb, huh? Jade huffed. No way! She pointed at her eyes. No bags there! For a second, the girl froze, realizing how close she and Axel were. A sudden sharp loud knock hit the door. Jade jumped in surprise. Who could be here at this late hour? Instead of answering, the guy barked at Jade to back off. He grabbed his sword and stepped toward the door. As Axel cautiously pulled the bolt, a panicked voice from behind the door pleaded for help. Finally, the door swung open all the way. Then Jade and Axel saw the bloodied red-haired man. Jade was in shock. She asked the man who he was and what happened. He panicked, stammering something about his daughter. Turns out the kid went to the lake and was attacked by monsters. He was covered in blood, trying to stop the bleeding on his own, but it wasn't working. They decided to help save his daughter. Axel headed to the storeroom for potions and tinctures. Jade asked, Are you just going to send this poor guy away with some medicine? She pointed out, it's pitch black in the forest. He's covered in blood. If you send him out now, he'll be in even more danger than the kid. Axel said he'd handle it himself. Jade needed to stay here. Then she asked if Axel knew the difference between Nornung weed and mango grass. Silence followed. Jade smirked and teased, How's Axel gonna help if he can't even tell a coagulant from a painkiller? The guy snapped back and ordered the girl to put on the coat. She perked up. When Jade saw the hurt kid, she realized it was worse than she thought. She wasn't sure she could pull this off. So the emergency treatment started. Jade clenched her fists and demanded, I need thread and a needle! The dad was getting in the way, stressing over scars. Jade shot back. Scars or her life? Think about that. Axel knew the guy had to go, so he wouldn't mess up the surgery. He told him to wait outside. Once the bleeding stopped, Jade stayed uneasy. That monster had a taste of her. Chances are, he'll be back for more. Again, she wished she could use her magic out here in the woods. Jade and Axel said their goodbyes to the dad. She told him she did everything she could. She promised to check on the girl until the wound heals and told the dad to make sure she takes her meds on time. The dad thanked them 1,000,000 times. Axel said, "I got one question for you, though." He asked, if the kid knew the lake was risky, why'd she go there alone? The dad admitted the kid kept insisting she had to meet someone there, so she snuck off while he wasn't looking. Axel pressed, but the dad shut him down. "Doesn't matter, got to check on my kid," he said. The dad slammed the door. Jade tensed up. What just happened? She was worried about the girl and wanted to help somehow, then it hit her. Axel could help that girl. He's basically a monster hunting pro, always saving Jade. When the guy said that was it for the day and time to head home, the main heroine called out to Axel, unsure. She said with anxiety in her voice that the monster that attacked the girl was definitely nearby and watching them, since monsters don't like letting prey go, so they chase it. The girl admitted she knew it was wrong to ask Axel this, but could he help the girl? Jade had never asked anyone for help before and was super nervous she'd get a no. To his surprise, the guy agreed to help and said it was hilarious watching her panic when he pretended to walk away. Axel pointed out there was a big problem: how to find the monsters if they're avoiding him. Then, Jade cheerfully offered to be bait. She reminded him, cheerful as ever, that monsters love hunting mages. But Axel didn't look as thrilled. He was stunned and barked at her. "Are you really still out of it?" Axel was furious and yelled, "Did your brain melt or what while you were taking care of that kid? How did this ridiculous idea even pop into your head?" Jade mumbled there were no other options. She had monster hunting experience too. Axel said he could get why her dad would volunteer as bait. He had a reason to risk his life, but she didn't. He added that now she was just a helpless civilian. Monsters could hurt her. His anger was boiling. He accused her, "Do you think your life's so worthless you can throw it away for some stranger?" The girl asked Axel to calm down. She laid out her reasons. She just wants to help the kid, but can't use magic. Axel snapped back that he hates nutjobs like you more than anything. The girl realized she messed up, but it was already too late. Axel cut her off cold, telling her to stay the hell away from him. Jade trudged to Ollie's cottage, her spirits crushed. Ollie asked what was wrong, why Jade looked so glum, and offered to talk it out over a cup of tea. Ollie said it was no surprise Axel lost his cool. Jade asked, "You think I'm reckless too, don't you?" Ollie paused, then replied coolly, "You need to worry more about yourself." Jade had a moment of self-doubt. She admitted, maybe she'd gone a little overboard with the self-sacrifice, but her resolve to help the kid still burned strong. Then Ollie dropped a bombshell. She had something for Jade. She handed Jade a gift. Jade froze. Inside was a magical stone with a one-of-a-kind engraving. The stone was etched with a wind protection spell. Jade couldn't believe someone was giving her something so valuable. Ollie smiled. "It's nothing much," she said. But Jade knew. This was a rare find. The engraved spell is pretty unique. They all vary from mage to mage, but this one's definitely something else. After getting the stone from Ollie, there was an unexpected catch. "You gotta talk to Axel, no backing down." She hesitated, but eventually said yes. But even after all that, she still had no clue what to say to him. Jade was heading to meet that hurt kid, and she told herself she'd just do whatever it took. The kid thanked her rescuer. Her dad had told her so much about her. Jade remembered the girl's name was Nina. "You're amazing," she said, gentle as could be. "You went through all that. Had to be awful and terrifying. The wound was healing up good." Jade asked Nina, "You don't remember anything about the monster, right? Any details on the attack could help with treatment." Nina said it happened just before sunset. She was passing by the lake, but the water caught her eye with these weird glowing circles. When she leaned in to check it out, a monster jumped out of the water. Jade figured the monster lured the kid in with light coming from its body. And if it attacked before sunset, that means it's pretty vicious. Could be a Vinhong Ven. The kid said she couldn't remember what it looked like. Ran off too fast. But she thought she saw a long tail and flat paws. Then the main character noticed something weird on Nina's face. Could be bite marks or scrapes. But the girl caught where Jade was looking and said it wasn't the monster who did this. She remembered how, as a kid, people with torches cornered her and screamed she was a monster's cub. Everyone panicked because it could turn into one of them someday and devour the whole city. The girl hesitated, saying the mark had been there since birth, then told her whole life story. Outside the forest, there was no place for her or her dad. People stayed away, whispering about the monster mark on her. Everywhere they went, the same cruel words followed like a curse. People chased them out. That's why Nina and her dad moved into the woods. Jade apologized for making the little girl relive something so painful. Nina said it was fine, because something good happened in the woods. She made her first friend. The word friend felt warm. But in the next second, doubt crept into Jade. She asked the girl, "Are there other kids around here your age?" Then Nina hesitated and softly said her friend wasn't human. And then, like a punch to the gut, she added, "He's a monster." The main character's heart skipped a beat. She leaned back in her chair, trying to process what she'd just heard. Nina kept talking, explaining how when she and her dad first moved here, she was terrified of monsters. The father kept telling her she couldn't stay home all the time, assuring her it was safe with him around. The kid kept telling her dad that he was hunting them. The girl knew every night the monster's shadow stood right outside the window, watching them. One day, the monster at the window left a gift. The next morning, the father asked the girl where she got the flowers. Had she gone out on her own? Nina mumbled something incoherent. The man reminded her it was dangerous. Better to call him when she wanted to go out. Then the dad suggested going today, and Nina agreed. But as soon as they stepped outside, the father screamed, "How was this possible under the crimson light?" He ordered his daughter to hide inside, and the heroes faced off with the monster. The creature held flowers in its claws and Nina cheered. "He left me a gift on the window." The girl's father was baffled. Nina happily shouted, "Now the monster's name is Mong." That's how she met Mong, the one she's been friends with for a whole year. She explained she named her friend that and asked Jade if it really sounded cute, since he always made that exact sound. The main heroine realized Nina had probably made friends with a mutated monster. She read about it in ancient scrolls. Mutated monsters are rarely nice to people. Nina explained she went to the lake to find Mong. They hadn't seen each other in a week. The thought that something might have happened to him worried her. Jade noticed this. Could the kid actually be crying? The heroine quickly reassured Nina everything was probably fine with her friend. Jade added monsters rarely fight each other. They have almost no natural enemies. The main heroine realized she was worried about a monster. That was just impossible. Nina said she hoped so. But her short reply made her skepticism obvious. The girl clarified she couldn't leave home without Mong. Even her dad calls her reckless. But with Mong, the girl felt safe anywhere in the woods. Jade suddenly realized the conversation made it clear why she volunteered to be bait. She screamed she had to go right now. She needed to tell Axel something important. Meanwhile, the guy was losing his mind. His plan was useless. He begged Pavel to be bait. No one showed up. The guy kept wondering if he should protect Jade until traders arrived. Then send her out of the woods? Suddenly, footsteps and female shouts. Jade was sprinting toward Axel, yelling his name. But something went wrong. And at the most critical moment, the main character tripped over a rock. It was lucky she didn't see the guy who ordered her eyes. Like he wasn't expecting anything else at all. Jade got up off the ground and asked the guy to listen, since he'd messed up yesterday by calling her reckless. She tried to explain that she suggested it because she trusted him. The girl admitted she thought of Axel as her own personal manga. This heartfelt confession was meant to show how close they were. But a second later, the heroine realized what a dumb thing she'd just said. Axel asked, "What was that supposed to mean, and what was she trying to say?" The main character opened up about her feelings, how much she trusted him, even when monsters were nearby, and even when she couldn't use magic. She felt safe with him because he was strong and always protected her. The girl muttered, "It was his fault she was so careless." Axel smirked and noted, "That's a pretty interesting conclusion." The guy told Jade to clean herself up and get the leaves off her face and hair, keeping his tone just as playful. But Jade insisted the guy listen to her until the end. He snapped, "This conversation's pointless, since she still can't use magic." Then Jade cheerfully announced, "I've got something here." The girl said Ollie gave her this, and pulled from her pocket a stone that could make up for the lack of magic. Jade chirped proudly that she could protect herself now. Axel sighed heavily, rolled his eyes in annoyance, and gave in, saying he agreed, but only if she promised to listen. So the heroes headed to the lake to carry out their plan. The guy asked if she'd heard of Makaras, and Jade asked him to clarify what he meant. He explained that a Makara is a monster shaped like a huge natural object, and the lake is one too. He added that falling into it is just like jumping into a Makara's mouth. That vivid comparison helped the heroine tie everything together, and finally get the earlier warnings about the lake's danger. Axel declared they had to wait now until Vic and Vina showed up from the lake, so the girl stayed on the shore waiting. Axel hid behind a tree and replayed in his head the girl's admission that she wasn't afraid of him anymore. He wondered why Jade was acting so calm and smiling. The girl pulled from her bag bandages soaked in Nina's blood and decided it was time for the baiting ritual. Jade called out to the monster in her mind. "Get over here already." She'd brought the prize he craved. Suddenly, glowing magical circles appeared in the lake. and the girl lit up, finally seeing the monster getting close. But Vihonvena never surfaced. Probably Axel's fault. Jade told him to stay put. Jane figured she needed to push a little. Risky? Hell yes. But it was the only play. The heroine pulled out a knife, carved her hand, and muttered, "Let's see if you make a run for it now." Axel froze at Jade's move, mind racing with rage over what she'd just done. Finally, Vihonvena burst up, jaws wide, lunging straight for Jade. The heroine scrambled for the magic stone, but as she dug, the beast inched closer to gobble her up. Next second, Axel slammed into the fray, hacked his sword hard, and gutted the monster. Vihonvena crumpled. The guy smirked. "Did you make a death wish, Jade?" He scoffed. "What the hell kind of plan was that? There's a limit to your dumbass stuff, right?" Jade shot back. "I had the stone!" Axel grabbed her hand, tore a strip off his shirt for a bandage. Then the monster roared. Axel and Jade gaped. The sword-sliced body stood there untouched. Jade shrieked, "How is it healing?" He hissed, "This thing regenerates. Big problem." He snarled, "Regeneration ain't endless. I'll keep slicing until it can't grow back." After a few dozen hits, Jade let out a happy cry. The monster's healing ability was dropping. Axel laughed, declared he was about to finish this beast off, and swung his sword one last time. Suddenly, Vihonvena reared up on its hind legs and let out some weird screech. A whole swarm of different monsters lunged at our heroes. Shaken, Axel guessed this guy was the local boss. He shouted to Jade he'd clear her a path. She needed to run home and not look back. She snapped right back. No way she was leaving him behind like that. Axel said he couldn't protect her and fight off all these things at once. Jade shot back she could handle herself with that magic stone. The guy opened his mouth to argue, but a monster was on him before he could say another word. No time for chatter now. As the stone kicked in, the heroine mentally noted how awesome it felt to use magic again after all this time. Axel's sword was barely keeping up, slashing through the air as the monsters kept hammering the heroes. But the critical moment hit when that magic stone suddenly went dark. The mutated monster snarled and lunged at her. All she had time to think was, this attack was coming straight for her. She braced for the hit, but suddenly felt a man's body take the blow for her. But the monster didn't care one bit. It snapped its jaws shut on Axel. All Jade could do was scream in despair, blaming herself. The guy had tried so hard to protect her. Jade wanted to save the guy, but how? She had abused the magical stone, and the magic was already used up. However, Jade wasn't about to sit back and do nothing. Now she was the only one who could save him. Vihonvena dove into the water with Axel in her jaws. The guy mentally fumed as his grip weakened, but somehow he managed to muster his last bits of strength and drove the sword straight into the monster's eye. In that same instant, the wounded creature let out a piercing screech and writhed its head around. Axel realized the sword was stuck in its eye, and he couldn't pull it out. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Jade dive into the water, and mentally, he noted that nothing could be dumber. The heroine was beating herself up, thinking if she hadn't been stubborn, Axel wouldn't have been dragged into the lake, and the monster wouldn't have been a problem. She recalled with irony her words about feeling safe when Axel was by her side. The girl cursed herself for throwing her life into the poor guy's hands, relying on his goodwill. Self-reproach turned into resolve, and Jade told herself she'd be the one to save Axel now. She chanted the spell, and to her surprise, it worked. The monster lit up from within. Now let's see how the main character came up with this plan. She was curious how the magic stone worked in Atna's forest. After all, magic is a prayer sent to a god via a spell, but in this forest left behind by the gods, prayers don't get through. The catch is the magic stones still work here. This is the only exception in a place the gods left behind. So does that mean the stone is the middleman? If that's the case, maybe Jade can use Axel. Knights are said to be the class that inherited God's body, so the magic should work. So the spell worked. Vihonvena's body was plummeting toward the bottom. Axel and Jade were stunned. Jade got way too excited about being able to use magic and exhaled a bunch of air. Axel instinctively knew she couldn't stay there any longer. They both started swimming toward the light. Suddenly, hundreds of tentacles shot up from nowhere and blocked their way. Axel realized Makara had found them and pulled Jade in close. The tentacles wrapped around the hero's arms in an instant. He even dropped his sword. Axel had only one hope left, that Jade could use magic. But she started suffocating, with no air to breathe. Countless times in the past, Axel imagined dying in this forest, but he never thought it'd be this helpless. Sinking to the lake bed, and he couldn't even picture spending his final moments with a mage. If you think about it, it's like our first meeting. Jade was unconscious and slowly sinking to the lake bed. He saved her then. He'll do the same now. After the kiss, the protagonist briefly opened her eyes, but was completely out of it. She couldn't even focus on Axel's face or figure out who stood before her. She came to when someone kept calling her name. The next second, she saw Nina's face and her father, Pavel. Nina asked in a worried tone how she felt. Jade wondered how she even survived. She tried to piece it together. She remembered jumping into the lake to help Axel. Then tentacles grabbed her and Axel down there. So, her recklessness landed Axel in trouble again. Nina suddenly remembered Jade took her bandages. Jade confirmed it. She'd used them as bait. The girl figured her buddy Mong tagged along, because she was reeking of Nina's blood. Mong caught the whiff of Nina's blood on the shore, panicked his friend was in trouble, and dove into the water. When Axel saw the monster, he cursed under his breath. Ironic timing, since he'd lost his sword earlier. The monster swam closer to the drowning heroes, letting out weird noises. The guy was stunned. What the hell was going on? But then he started choking, coughing up a storm. Air was running out fast. Meanwhile, the monster was slapping its paws, mimicking that weird Mong noise over and over. The monster spotted the sword sticking out from between its lower tentacles. Axel was clueless. Why the hell was this monster helping them? Jade told Nina her buddy saved their butts, so she better say thanks, Nina shouted. Awesome! I've been dying to introduce the guys to him, she added. Once Mr. Knight wakes up, he'll bring Mong over. The girl asked, where's Axel at? Pavel said, he's right next to Jade. The main heroine, absolutely horrified. She panicked. Why's he with you? The girl apologized. We only have one bed, but it's super big. Nina added, that bed fits me and my dad. Sleep like a log. The shouting and chatter woke Axel up. He mumbled something, all groggy. Nina cheered, hey, the knight's awake. While the guy muttered, man, it's loud in here. Jade spotted Axel's bandaged hand and immediately knew he'd taken the hit to protect her. Nina whispered, I'm gonna go grab Mong. He's coming to meet the heroes right now. Pavel grumbled, you're not even fully healed yet. Can't have you running off alone. I'm coming too. Jade hesitated. How you feeling? That hand look bad? But instead of replying, he clenched his fists and swore. Next time, I won't let you down. Jade wondered. Had her words backfired? I didn't think anything had happened to me with you around. She couldn't shake the guilt. Had she just thrown Axel into danger by accident? When did I become this helpless? Her self-doubt turned to sorrow. Axel, I'm so sorry, I was reckless. I hate that I let you down, she whispered. Flashback time. At 12, Jade lost her parents. Big hit to the family. Struggling with her uncle, she learned her home was no safe zone. That's when Jade vowed to fight for what was hers, and protect it. Until Axel came along, everything changed. The guy just helped whoever needed it, but he was the first to step up for Jade. He saved her time and time again, and before she knew it, she was leaning on him. The main character didn't just admit she was dependent. She owned up to her guilt. If Axel hadn't gotten dragged into that lake because of her, she probably never would have seen the light. After seeing her mistakes, she apologized again, plain and simple, and admitted she'd been way too reckless this time. But Axel had no clue what she was sorry about. Suddenly, Nina's excited gasps filled the room. Look what Mong got me! She eyed the monster cowering behind the girl's leg. Is that really Mong? Nina beamed and nodded. Jade muttered, guess he's cuter than I thought. She gave him a nod, said thanks for saving her. But inside, she was thinking, how weird is this, talking to a monster? Suddenly, Pavel chimed in. I owe you both, too. He was already grateful for the healing, but you two took out that monster to keep Nina safe. Jade insisted only Axel deserved thanks. She'd dumped everything on him and was basically useless, but he wasn't about to stay silent. She's the one who patched Nina up and checked in on her. He made sure everyone knew. She stuck with Axel by the lake until the bitter end. Yeah, someone else might have lent a hand, but Jade's the one who saved his bacon. He figured the girl deserved some credit, too. Meanwhile, over at the Brovins estate, the knight raised an eyebrow. Milady, why on earth are you visiting this place and walking among commoners? Lady Asella shrugged. Honestly, it's not that weird to check out the estate. Sometimes she found herself instinctively covering her nose. This place reeked. She asked, so what do these folks do for a living? He replied, well, not sure, but that commoner over there looks like a thief. Milady yanked her purse and hissed as she realized it was empty. The knight sighed, exasperated. I'll go fetch it, and don't you dare move an inch without me. Azella's mind flashed back to her father's words. That's poverty, not freedom. Once Jade becomes the official head of the house, she'll kick her father out first. Then her daughter would have to live like a commoner too. The thought made her wonder, would it even be that hard? Azella's father's furious face popped into her head again, ranting about how the estate, fancy clothes, jewels, and servants don't come free. He'd demand to know if she even realized how expensive her peaceful life was. He brought up her dowry. The girl shot back that they could live more simply. The guy just laughed it off. He mused if Asella was even talking about herself, like she's never actually lived like that. On the one hand, maybe her dad's right. She might not cut it in that world. But things are different now. Out of nowhere, a guy called out. Man, I saw that cutie from blocks away. He yanked her hood and asked, Did your man ditch you or what? Then grinned and said his crew could brighten her day. Lady Asella was in a world of trouble. Strangers yanked her, ignoring her struggles and begging. Their calloused hands gripped her. Please help, she cried. But no one heard her plea. Bystanders stayed cold, until a knight burst in, shouting, Madam, you're under my protection. The attackers froze. Noble blood, huh? They were out of their league. He ranted about scum and get your hands off a lady. The thugs fled. The knight helped her to her feet. Citizens who didn't even know about the girl's high status were shocked and furious at the criminal's actions. Asella sharply ordered the knight to escort her back to the castle where she'd be safe. Later, he reported he'd already filed a complaint with the city guard, and the criminals would face their punishment soon. Lady Asella asked her subordinate how events would have played out if she weren't Lady Asella. The knight said they might have only gotten a warning. That bitter answer hit the heroine like a ton of bricks. It was the first time she truly grasped what her status bought her. After everything, Asella finally saw the truth. Now she knew that if Jade became the head of the house, they'd both be cast out. She'd end up on the same street, but as a regular nobody. Realizing her status brought clarity and fresh fears. Asella knew she could never go back to being the same girl after this day. Even if Jade never came back, she'd keep playing the part of Lady Asella, hiding her pain behind a noble mask. Clenching her fists, she whispered an apology to her cousin. She'd never wanted Jade to die or get hurt. She realized she was her father's daughter. Looks like she'd have to pretend not to see what he did. Asella admitted to herself that she'd always been compared to Jade since childhood. And it hurt like hell. The girl silently asked her cousin to understand her and not get upset. The knight called out to the lady and told her to look at the sky. That day, it was especially beautiful, dyed in an unusual shade of purple. Just like Jade's eyes, it felt like it was staring right into Asella's timid heart, filling it with a strange, uneasy shiver. A few days passed, but Asella couldn't forget that sky. It kept reminding her of something important, something she hadn't even dared to admit to herself. The girl ran into Mr. and wondered why he'd shown up at the castle after being gone so long. He admitted he'd come here solely because of Felix. That bastard had decided to stage premature funerals for Jade Bowen. Asella was in shock and remembered her father's recent words. He'd said he hoped it'd be great if Jade either died or lost a limb. And if she didn't show up soon, he was even ready to throw her a full-blown funeral. But back then, Lady hadn't realized how serious her father's intentions were. She'd taken it all as a joke. Meanwhile, Jade had no clue what was going on or where she'd ended up. Asella stood right in front of the coffin. Jade was in total confusion. She didn't get whose funeral it was, until she saw her own name on the plaque. She froze in shock first, but then loud, almost hysterical laughter echoed nearby. Turns out it was Uncle Felix, celebrating and cheering because the Browen house was finally his. He was shouting that he'd be the head of the family. Suddenly, the protagonist woke up, her breath barely steady and heartbeat slowing. She realized it had been a nightmare. Tension hung in the room during breakfast. Jade looked worse than usual. Her face showed exhaustion and lack of sleep. She hadn't slept well. This time was different from her usual rest. It felt uneasy and weird. Her thoughts were dark, but she tried to calm herself. If someone's been gone 2 months, no one's gonna start throwing funerals. But there was something ominous about that dream. Jade started suspecting Felix had already reached her people. It pushed her to realize she needed to act faster and find that weirdo ASAP. Suddenly, Axel got up from his seat. He hadn't fully recovered from his injuries, but he insisted on going. The guy claimed winter was near and they needed to stock up on food. Jade tried to argue, pointing out his weakened state and unhealed wounds, but he was unmoved. In the end, she offered to help, assuring she could handle it. After all, it was her fault he got hurt, and now she felt responsible. When he moved to leave, Jade quickly stopped him. If you take one more step, I'll brew you up a potion that'll have your gut rebelling all day. Her eyes went ice cold, and the air between them thickened with tension. So the heroine won that round. Axel pointed her west, saying that's where you'd find the hunter. He explained you gotta say his name, and then the hunter'll hand over some food. But before she left the house, she insisted she could hunt on her own. Axel just laughed. The path felt tricky and full of surprises. Finally, she pushed through every obstacle and made it there. The heroine knocked for ages before a grumpy voice barked, "What's with the racket so early?" She shot back, "It's way past morning." And the door creaked open to an annoyed man. He blinked, surprised to see a woman, then sneered, "Looking for handouts?" Jade bristled. "Hardly." Then she mumbled, "Someone said if I say Axel's name, you'd give me food." The hunter stiffened. "You know Axel?" She nodded. "We live together." That raised an eyebrow. "You call him, sir?" Then he asked how Axel's doing, which totally weirded her out. She added she's a mage, But magic's off limits in the woods. The hunter hesitated, then tossed her a bundle of food. Suddenly, the guy told her to hold on a sec. He started rummaging through his gear. Soon, he pulled out a strange object that sparkled in his hands. It was a lapis lazuli mana stone, one of the main magical stones used for making artifacts. Just engrave a spell on it and you're set. Low tier, but it can still store energy. The hunter said the stone had come to him by accident, but he didn't need it. He was willing to give it to his new friend. The girl was thrilled she could now use magic without Axel's help. No more needing to ask Ollie for anything. She thanked the stranger and introduced herself. He gave his name as Dale Megan. But before handing over the stone, he asked for a favor. Jade bristled, but agreed to listen. Turns out, Dale had lost his necklace and wanted her to help find it. He insisted it was a simple request, but when the main character arrived at the spot he directed her to, she got an unpleasant shock. The place was disgusting, reeking of bad smells. She realized the task wasn't as simple as it seemed. Mud and dampness surrounded Jade. She panicked, unsure how to find the necklace in such conditions. Meanwhile, Axel started getting worried. Jade should have been back by now. Was she in trouble again? The guy knew Dale wouldn't cause problems, but then doubted it. After all, Dale could have made them himself. The guy figured Dale wasn't the type to put a girl in danger. Axel walked into the house. Everything around him was unusually calm and boring. The guy remembered it had been just as quiet before he met Jade. He glanced at the stove and remembered how he'd recently put out Jade after she set herself on fire from burning a dish. Axel grumbled, "Can't the girl go a day without causing trouble?" Now the guy realized Jade was a loudmouth, always ending up in messes. But she made things fun and somehow better. Axel's gaze suddenly landed on the dresser. He wondered if he'd ever had the chance to check it out before. He opened the drawer, pulled out a letter, and read it. Dale told Jade to grab a snack and rest after the mission. The guy couldn't hold back the laughter. Between his fits, he managed to get out. "The girl reeks." Jade shot back with a snarky, "Whose fault is this?" Then she asked, furious, "Did Dale send you there just to make fun of me?" She demanded a straight answer, but only got a vague, "who knows," in return. The guy admitted he hadn't found the necklace himself, but figured maybe the new friend could manage it. The main heroine noticed Dale's mood had clearly dropped after that. The guy noted that, despite everything, calling her a stinker clearly hurt Jade. Dale added that it was pretty understandable, considering the swamp's stink, but then abruptly cut himself off. The girl demanded he finish what he was saying. The characters got into a discussion about the weird swamp that popped up in the forest, where common sense says there's not enough moisture for it to exist. Dale figured it didn't come about naturally, but when the girl asked just how, he didn't have an answer. Instead, there was a hint that maybe ignorance is the safer bet. But soon, Dale caved to Jade's badgering. Turns out the swamp formed because monsters had been doing their business there for ages. Jade realized with disgust she'd been crawling through all that mess. She even felt queasy while the guy laughed it off. The main heroine stayed with the hunter after dark, wondering if Axel would even notice she was gone. Later, the talk turned to the past. Dale spilled how he first met Axel. Turns out, 8 years ago, he was a mercenary in desperate need of cash, since his wife was expecting a kid. Hoping to make a big score, he joined an expedition to a dangerous region, where he met Axel, who was still a kid back then. It's safe to say the viewers, like Jade, are now wondering how their relationship evolved and what secrets the past hides. 8 years ago, this world had a horrifying practice. Poor families sold their kids to expedition groups, who used them as bait for monsters. Dale, upon meeting Axel, initially thought he was one of those poor kids. The guy was blaming both the parents who sent their kids to die and the expedition leaders who bought them. Dale was planning to take charge of the kid, but it turned out young Axel had been paired with a young ice mage. The kid immediately refused to work with him, saying he could handle it on his own. The mage, offended by the dismissal, tried to prove his worth, but only made things more irritating. Even the offer to help was met with scorn. The brunette accused the mage of being incompetent, and the mage called the kid arrogant in return. Turns out the young hero had long hated mages, thinking they were selfish and useless. He even refused to use healing magic, preferring to handle his injuries alone. The bloodied mage sat in front of his partner, staring at him with disdain. Axel said the partner was to blame for going alone to a dangerous spot to collect samples. The kid reminded him firmly that his job was monster hunting, clearly annoyed by his partner's solo move, and sarcastically asked if the mage thought he was his personal bodyguard. The mage who joined the expedition insisted he came here for the samples, not to fight monsters. Axel's attitude was so hostile, he didn't even hide his hate. He said he didn't want to talk about it anymore and walked off, but the mage was determined to open his partner's eyes. He kept his word, leaving young Axel alone at the bottom of a cold, dark place. The gloomy atmosphere hinted at more trials ahead. "Now, You're probably wondering how Axel ended up in this mess. Well, a few hours earlier, the boy was sent to fetch water from the forest. The water there hadn't frozen yet, even in the cold. Axel didn't notice the mage whispering a spell. The mage summoned a strong wind that kicked up a blizzard. As a result, the boy fell into a cave, and despite his dislike for mages, found himself in a situation where help was needed. Right then, Dale appeared and offered help. Despite his stubbornness and need for independence, Axel had to accept it. Dale suggested the kid drink something. It's a great way to warm up. But Axel refused, explaining that alcohol creates a false sense of warmth. It actually lowers your body temp. He added that drinking hot tea would work better, but Dale ignored his advice and firmly handed the boy a glass. After a long pause, Axel took a small sip. He immediately exclaimed how bitter it tasted. Dale laughed and explained he'd had a pollen allergy as a kid. He remembered how, once, just for laughs, the kids he didn't get along with had showered him with flowers. He learned never to reveal his true weaknesses. He warned that it's smarter to keep stuff like that hidden from others. Then Dale suddenly pulled out a photo of his wife. He just got married. The guy was bragging about his pregnant wife, calling her a total looker. The conversation turned to the kid. Dale asked Axel, "What do you think, girl or boy?" But the kid just snapped, "What? Do I look like I know?" The vibe totally shifted. Dale was ticked that the kid got all snappy. He slapped Axel's cheek and called him a brat. The kid shouted, "Back off, man!" Dale asked, "Why the attitude?" No response. He told the kid to politely ask him to back off. Please and sir and all that. But Axel just scoffed. "Why would I even listen to you?" Dale got a little flustered and told Jade he'd acted like that. 'Cause he didn't know Axel's status. Jade raised an eyebrow. "What status? You think Axel's some high-class big shot?" Dale smirked. "You don't know anything, huh? Better ask Axel himself." Then he got serious. "Axel doesn't belong in that dark forest full of cowards." Dale pulled Jade close and insisted she had to get him out of there. Jade's eyes went wide. "Why her?" she asked, confused. Dale said calmly, but with a smirk. "We live together. Axel's gonna follow his girl, obviously." Jade's cheeks flushed. "That's not right at all. Our relationship isn't like that," she exploded. Jade waved her hands wildly, trying to brush off the ridiculous idea. She tried to say more, but kept stumbling over her words. A loud crash from the roof interrupted them. Jade peeked out to check it out and spotted a terrifying monster perched in a tree. It was a massive devourer monster. Even though it was about 15 meters tall, it wasn't considered dangerous since you could spot it from miles away. It moved slowly, gobbling up everything in its path, but didn't seem hostile to people. The devourer ignored them unless they struck first. Jade was mesmerized by the monster, until she noticed Dale walking toward her. She shouted, "It's okay! The monster's not a threat unless you attack it." But her smile faded when Dale muttered, "I know," and kept walking. Jade tried to reason with him, but Dale stood his ground and told her to get out of the way. Jade had no idea what was wrong with him, or what was coming next. The next second, ignoring the warnings, Dale took off like a bullet, charging forward despite the danger. He had field experience, but no magic skills or knightly training. But when he decided to act alone, Jade knew attacking the devourer without backup was suicide, and she couldn't stop him now. Dale leaped, swinging at the beast, but all it did was make the devourer madder. He clenched his fists and slammed them into the ground, shaking the earth beneath Dale's feet. The guy went for a spear strike right into its eye. That just made the devourer furious. He swung, drove a fist into the brave kid's chest, sent him flying several meters. Meanwhile, the heroine realized his actions were leading to certain death. She had to step in. She charged forward, determined to stop him before it was too late, and the daredevil died. But the fire of rage hadn't gone out in the boy's eyes. He got back up and lunged forward again. Jade couldn't figure out what was driving him to act so recklessly. The devourer swiped a claw. Overhead, a tree came crashing down on Dale. She thought it was over. The immobilized daredevil was now easy prey for the monster. Then came the devourer's furious roar. But a second later, the situation changed in an instant. The birds distracted the monster. He turned and walked off in another direction. Jade let out a relieved breath, silently noting how lucky she was. She ran over to the guy, checking if he was okay. He didn't say a word. But even after the heroine helped him out from under the tree, he kept grunting and moaning in pain. After wrapping his wound, the guy grabbed a bottle. Jade thought he shouldn't be drinking so much. Plus, the eater was covered in wounds. Probably not his first fight with Dale. The heroine asked why he even needed to attack the monster. Dale stayed silent for a long time. Then a vision of a beautiful girl appeared in his mind. He muttered that he'd lost someone. Now back to the expedition days when Dale and Axel started to bond. The last day of monster hunting arrived. The heroes, tired but satisfied, realized their trial was over. Dale ruffled the young hunter's hair, praising how he'd stayed unharmed. But the festive mood was broken when a stranger showed up, introducing himself as a servant of Lord Axel. Dale froze in confusion. He hadn't expected his companion to be of noble blood. When the fancy carriage arrived with a high-ranking servant, everything became clear. The kid just smiled and said they should keep acting the same as always. Dale couldn't believe it. He'd never even considered they were on friend terms and had treated him like dirt. Dale loved bossing around teenagers, so he never missed a chance to tease or rip into the kid. He took glee in barking at the younger one, shoving his nose in his face and telling him to stop talking back. Once, he asked for a lift and climbed on the boy's back, cackling about how convenient this free stepstool was. Dale grumbled dryly how he even survived this mess. The kid waved him off, calling his drama ridiculous. Axel asked his partner if he was really quitting the hunting gig for good. The guy shrugged. No one stays a mercenary forever, and now he needed to stick close to his wife. Then it hit him. He'd never used the right title, so he hurriedly tacked on "my lord" while scrambling to fix the mistake. Axel noticed how the kid always glowed when talking about his wife. Dale grinned. Totally normal, then flushed and added, "your lordship," like an afterthought. He said once you find your person, everything else just changes. Dale walked the young man to the carriage, declared it was time to go, and bowed with a flourish. Dale had no idea that kid was some big deal noble. He was sure Tilda would flip when she found out. He opened the locket and silently told his wife he was on his way and would never leave her again. But sometimes life just laughs at you. When it feels like happiness is just around the corner, in the charred remains of the house, Dale saw endless photos he and his wife had taken together, then spotted the bed frame where they'd shared their love. But something else grabbed the guy's attention. Among the blackened ruins, he spotted his lover's limbs. Dale silently begged someone to tell Tilda what had happened while he was away. Did she really miss him that much? The guy was sure everything would have been okay if he hadn't left his wife. And he regretted it all, cursed himself. The guy started hating God and wandered into a forest God had left behind. 6 months had gone by since he moved into Atana's forest. One day, he fished a locket with their photo out of the water. He hoped the picture stayed dry. It was the only thing left of Tilda for him. The guy carefully hung the locket to dry. But suddenly, a horrifying roar echoed. Then came a dull thud. Dale was stunned. There stood a massive monster right in front of him. The beast had swallowed Dale's pendant along with the meat. He told Jade everything and concluded that he'd been hunting the devourer for 7 years. She was shocked. Had he really been chasing the monster alone for 7 years? He admitted the swamp was a huge hassle. He crossed it dozens, maybe even hundreds of times. Now only one place was left: to search inside that monster's body. That was their last hope. But even if the guy managed to find the necklace inside the monster, the stomach acid would have long since eaten away the photo. Suddenly, the serious Dale, with the steel willpower, burst into tears, and through his sobs, said he couldn't take it anymore. He had no idea what to do. He complained he could barely remember Tilda's face anymore. The main heroine wanted to offer some comfort, but realized any words would have been pointless in this situation. Later, Axel and Jade were doing some minor home repairs and discussing Dale. Jade wanted to help him find the necklace. After all, Dale had promised to hand over his magical artifact, lapis lazuli, in exchange. It would let Jade use magic for her own purposes. Maybe she could track down that oddball. Axel was skeptical, called the search pointless and hopeless, and told them not to waste their time. Jade hesitated, then admitted she couldn't stop thinking about her lost dad whenever she looked at Dale. She'd tried chasing him too, running and screaming. She begged him not to leave her alone, but it was all for nothing. Her dad didn't pause for a second. He just kept moving. A little while later, the heroine realized the necklace Dale had been chasing for years was basically impossible to track down. Meanwhile, Axel's words kept echoing in her head, that this was a pointless waste of time. But Jade decided to give it a week. Over the next week, she studied the predator's habits. It slept during the day, hunted at night, and devoured everything in its path, trees included. But even with all that watching, she found no sign of the necklace. Then, during a stakeout, a fawn appears, and it's obvious the monster's about to go for it. What's the heroine going to do? Will she risk saving the helpless creature? The monster spotted the fawn, but then something weird happened. It didn't attack. Jade was stunned. The monster never just ignored its prey. It went against everything it was. Then it hit her. Dale had mentioned the necklace was swallowed along with the deer meat. How's the main character going to use this info now? Could be a lead. Maybe that necklace inside the monster is messing with its behavior. She followed the monster's trail and caught it chomping on mushrooms. Jade wasn't about to let this chance slip. Eater was just shoveling stuff in, no clue what it was. She tossed a deer leg into the chomping beast's jaws. Plan worked. Monster swallowed the deer meat. Jade was all smiles. Then things took a turn. Eater started whining and getting all restless. Next second, the monster puked up a storm. Our heroine thought, "That's weird." Monster flopped down for a nap. She realized the deer meat must have caused the puke. Confirmed her hunch. "So there's hope Jade can find that necklace," Dale grumbled. "Why'd you drag me here, Jade? If I knew we'd end up here, I'd have brought weapons." Jade tried to calm him down. "We don't need that. We're here to sneak in and grab the necklace." Jade stressed stealth, not brawn. Dale shot back. "That necklace ain't even here." He asked, "Why would a monster hoard it like treasure?" Jade insisted on searching. Dale fretted. "Too much time's passed. No guarantee it's still here." Jade reminded Dale that he mentioned when the necklace went missing, the eater was eating venison. She added that she saw the monster devour the meat. The next morning, he threw up. She figured the necklace came out that way too. Dale was skeptical. I mean, it was just Jade's theory. He started panicking. If the monster wakes up, they're both dead. They had to get out now, but Jade convinced him to stick it out and keep searching. Dale hesitated. What if he hurt her even worse? Dawn was breaking, and it hit Jade hard. Had it really been that long? She wanted to come back tomorrow, but saw how desperately Dale was digging and scraping the dirt. Then came a happy yell. Looks like Dale finally dug up the treasure they'd been waiting for. He gently pried open the pendant, and there was his beloved wife's face. His heart warmed as he took in her soft, light hair, round eyes, arched brows, and that big, familiar smile. How could he have forgotten her face? He was stunned. He cried like a kid, shouting, "Thank God the necklace was actually here." The main heroine couldn't hold back her tears. A young man suddenly threw himself at her, hugging her and happily muttering, he was so grateful it was all thanks to her. A loud crash and roar sent our heroes frozen in shock. A massive monster stood right in front of them. Dale snapped back and barked at Jade to run. No time to waste. The heroine was late again, and Axel was clearly annoyed. He remembered telling her the day before her efforts were pointless, and now he felt a little guilty. Finally, Jade burst in, shouting she'd found the necklace. She bragged about her new lapis lazuli. Dale had given it to her as a thank you gift. She told how the guy called her a savior and promised to lend a hand in the future. Axel asked why she went so out of her way for Dale, someone she barely knew. He figured she was crushing on Dale, but he was wrong. The heroine confessed Dale's story reminded her of her late father. That's why she helped. She smiled and suggested they grab a drink and talk. So Axel and Jade sat under the stars, sipping an alcoholic drink. She remarked how good it all felt right now. Then she nervously asked how Axel's arm was. He grunted, said it was fine. Jade stayed quiet, but her eyes said she got it. He just wasn't ready to talk about it. She cleared the air, filling the silence with a quiet, shaky confession. Her parents died when she was 12. She paused, then added that the official story was an epidemic, but only her mom was actually sick. She hesitated, gathering her thoughts, before whispering that her dad chose to follow her mom. Jade drifted into memories. The last thing she remembered of her dad was his back, like a wall blocking out the world. When Dale lunged at the monster without hesitation, his stance, his whole vibe, it hit her like a punch. Her dad. Same fire, same way the world just faded. Later, when Dale mentioned his wife, Jade's mind went back to her dad. He'd loved his wife, her mom, just as fiercely, so much that he couldn't breathe without her. Left his little girl all alone. Axel figured Jade probably hated her dad for it. She nodded. Yeah, she'd hated him as a kid. But time taught her it wasn't hatred that drove him. Just pain so deep, it swallowed him whole. That night before he left, he kept apologizing. All he could think about was seeing Lizzie again, over and over. Jade confessed that's why she couldn't stand by. Dale looked like he'd make the same choice. Axel, awkwardly trying to cheer her up, poured her drink so hard it overflowed. Jade laughed. Axel, cut it out. My cup's already overflowing. The situation was definitely a laugh, but Jade had no clue how to actually drink it now. She watched Axel flounder with a smile, silently noting how awkwardly he tried to comfort people. But when their mugs finally clinked, he whispered, "Cheers." It was already deep into the night, but our characters had no plans to hit the sack. Instead, they kicked off a lighthearted chat. Axel wondered aloud if Jade wasn't at all weirded out about crashing under the same roof as Dale. A single guy. Jade sarcastically bristled. Nothing had really changed, since the guy had lived there alone before. Axel shrugged it off, deadpan. I don't see Jade as a woman, so no big deal. The conversation turned into a minor tiff. Jade was fuming and snapped, "Say that again?" Then, crossing her arms, she muttered, "I never really saw you as a man either." Her face flushed as she recalled accidentally brushing against his body before. Jade realized she'd once thought Axel was brooding and mysterious, but now he was an open book. That revelation made the heroine's face light up with a smile. Axel, noticing her daydreaming, grumbled, "Stop staring into space. You look ridiculous." Jade laughed again, catching on that he was saying this because he thought she was sad and trying to cheer her up. Jade's thoughts were cut short by a sudden realization. Maybe they were way closer than she'd thought. Jade pointed out that Dale mentioned Axel was part of a monster hunting expedition 7 years back. Axel frowned and said they shouldn't bring it up, but Jade pressed on, saying Dale mentioned the kid ignored the mages there. She was curious why, but Axel froze up, clearly tensing. Jade started to get uneasy. Last time, the guy told her straight to stop asking about his past. But now, maybe he'd actually talk. Out of nowhere, Axel admitted he was bored out of his mind when she stayed the night at Dale's. Jade blinked, asking if she'd heard that right. Axel suddenly smirked, asking if she wanted to make a bet. Jade played it cool, asking what this was all about. He said if she wins, he'll spill every last detail. Jade's face lit up. This was the first time Axel had ever offered to talk. Jade whooped, "That's perfect. I'll totally win. But what's the challenge?" Axel smirked. "The rules are simple." The next day, he announced whoever gathers more food by sunset wins. Jade had her doubts. Jade huffed. "You're not just going to ignore me again, are you?" She wanted answers, not some silly contest to dodge the past. He'd been caught. Jade protested. "This is totally unfair." She called out his edge. He'd been surviving in this forest 5 years longer than her. Axel nods, figuring she's got a solid point, and casually suggests adding a rule. Let her ask for backup when she needs it. She wasn't expecting that kind of give-in, so Jade instantly caught on to the trick. Mentally, she braced herself. Had he really got that much confidence in himself? Despite the doubts, her eyes blazed with resolve. Jade was all fired up and shot back that Axel better keep his guard up. She meant to go all out and win. Axel just smirked, muttering low under his breath that, yeah, he wanted Jade to win too. The girl froze. An awkward silence hung in the air, so thick you could hear leaves rustling. Next up, the scene shifts to Bernard's office. Maury told him she'd dug into the case of the dead teleporter mage. Turns out, he had 2 little kids and massive gambling debts. She pointed out the kicker. His debts vanished the moment he died, and the kids got snatched up by wealthy families. Bernard called it out as fishy and asked if there's a Felix connection. The accountant sighed, saying nothing so far, but the advisor was convinced. Felix was definitely in this. Just needed hard proof. Maury quickly cooled his temper and dropped a bigger bomb. There was something even more urgent. She pointed out the Browen heiress is missing, and no magical investigation has even started. She warned if they don't act, this'll get brushed off as some random disappearance. She firmly said we need to get this investigation moving again. It's faster than trying to connect it to Felix. The man agreed and suggested finding influential allies willing to help Lady Jade. A sudden knock at the door made them both jump. Maury tensely asked, "Who's there?" The door slowly creaked open, and Lady Asella stepped into the room. Bernard cautiously asked, "What can we do for you, my lady?" Maury feigned calmness. "Just came by to discuss the financial reports," she said. Asella clenched her fists. "There's something I need to tell you both," she admitted. When Maury realized it was about the teleportation mage responsible for Lady Jade's accident, she perked up. Bernard dryly noted they already knew the mage was dead. "Do you know who recommended him for the expedition?" Lady Asella pressed. A heavy silence fell. Bernard and Maury exchanged shocked glances. Maury snapped, "We tried to find out, but the expedition records are classified." Lady Asella whispered, "It was Arlo Crisfi." She explained Arlo was a mage who worked with Jade on the expedition. His recommendation seemed natural, which hid any suspicions. Bernard sharply asked, "How do you know this, my lady?" She nervously admitted, "I read it in my father's documents." Maury didn't get Lady Azella's motives. If Lady Jade vanished by accident, why dig through old records? She asked. She decided to confront Lady Asella head-on. "Why are you really here?" Maury demanded. Asella was torn. Tell the truth now, and her father would cast her out. But stay silent, and they'd never find Jade. She remembered the commoners attacking her. Then she remembered her father screaming at her. The memories clashed, and she realized there was no point in hiding the truth. Asella shouted with a breaking voice. Jade's disappearance wasn't an accident. Her father did it. She begged the advisors to believe her, desperation clear in her eyes. Inside, Asella thought her father's freedom was a torment. She admitted she'd always looked up to Jade, mostly for her strength she never had. Asella cried that she was a greedy, rotten kid, but now wanted to be like Jade, brave and honest. Sobbing, she said, "I need to find Jade," then dropped the biggest secret. She whispered, "We don't have much time. My father will have her funeral soon." Bernard and Maury stared in horror, asking each other if they'd heard right. Lady Jade's funeral? The advisors raced to find the home of Arlo Crisfi. Bernard hesitated. "Do you believe Lady Asella, Maury?" She replied coldly, "Maybe." Maury added, "Truth or not, I'm not sitting this out." Bernard nodded. "Right. They're already planning Lady Jade's funeral." Bernard and Maury arrived at the mage's home tied to Jade's disappearance. A counselor pointed it out. That's the place, no doubt. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed. The door flew open and a man came rushing out. The advisors were already stunned, but their shock multiplied when a guy stepped out of the same doorway. He activated his magic, then, in a frosty tone, declared he'd state the question for the last time. His shadow loomed over the poor guy. The young man sternly asked where Lady Jade was. Turns out this was Riel Hayes, the head of the Hayes family, a renowned water mage and top magic researcher. The only one personally honored by the king for academic achievements and conducted major studies in magic. Despite his influence and knowledge, Riel never joined monster expeditions, drawing criticism from other noble families. He first joined an expedition right when Jade disappeared. Bernard suspected the guy's sudden involvement in the fateful expedition was fishy. Why is he searching for Lady Jade too? Maybe Riel was helping Felix cover up a crime. Or, on the flip side, secretly investigating the disappearance. The young mage grilled the man, but the guy tearfully swore he knew nothing. Riel accused him of recommending that unreliable, clumsy mage, which caused the tragedy. The man insisted he didn't know the mage was a fraud and trusted him. Riel, clearly furious, invited the man to repeat his story at the Hayes estate, hinting at fun toys, meaning torture. The man pleaded for mercy. Then, Lady Jade's advisors decided to step in. They introduced themselves and asked Riel Hayasa to calm down so they can discuss Lady Jade's situation together. The young man immediately suspects their ties to House Brune and accuses the family of doing nothing. He's furious. Do you even want to find Lady Jade? There's been no investigation, and House Brune didn't even raise a damn protest. Bernard protests. We did everything we could. But Riel scoffs at their helplessness. Maury, cooler-headed, cuts in. Riegel's actually worried about Lady Jade. This might be an ally, not an enemy. The young man, without explaining details, orders them to follow. There's something important I need to do. Bernard and Maury, though skeptical and not trusting Riel much, follow along anyway. They figure the young mage could be the key to saving Lady Jade. Bernard and Maury follow Riel and end up stunned at the luxurious royal palace. They didn't expect Riel to pull such a risky move. You're out of your damn mind, they mutter. Riel reminds them, you said you did everything you could. He points out, if the advisors couldn't find her using just the rules, maybe it's time to break them. Shows he's willing to break the rules to save Lady Jade. Riel bluntly accuses the king and the whole system of doing nothing. Lady Jade's western border commander vanished, and not even an investigation started. He said everyone knows how much we've invested in this mission. Could His Majesty really ignore that? The king dodges the question, saying the investigation hit roadblocks, but Riel calls him out on the BS. He claims there's no investigation at all, just a setup. The king's playing a dangerous game, trying to throw us off. He asks Lord Hyas flat out, why are you so worked up about Bowen's heir? You got feelings for her? He sees right through the king's ploy, trying to shift blame onto his personal life. But Riel doesn't rise to the bait. The kid's fists are clenched tight, rage boiling under his skin. He knows the king doesn't care about Lady Jade's life. He's done waiting for the system to act. It's time to go rogue, even if it means going up against the throne. Bernard and Maury see the truth now. Either the king's involved in Lady Jade's disappearance, or he's just letting her die. But what the hell do they do now? Riel's gonna have to break the rules. Bernard and Maury face a choice. Stick to the law or side with a rogue mage. If Riel steps out of line, the king will brand him a traitor in a heartbeat. Lady Jade was just a useful piece on the king's board. They had a deal. King got a powerful mage to hunt monsters. She got political leverage. But now that she's gone, he won't lift a finger to find her. She's not useful anymore. Riel slams the king for hypocrisy. If the mission leader can be abandoned, who the hell signs up for the next one? He's hinting it'll start a chain reaction, lost trust in the crown, and that's a recipe for rebellion. The king sees this as a hidden threat and threatens to throw him in the traitor's cell, but reluctantly agrees to start the investigation under pressure. Still, his tone and words made it clear this was just an empty formality. Plus, he added, he's letting Riel off the hook this time. Riel knows no real help is coming, but keeps his cool with a clear smirk, muttering, he'll note this down. After the audience, Bernard thanks Riel, but worries he's just lost the king's favor for good. Riel reveals his plan. He brought the advisors here for a reason, to get them to vouch for him when Jade is found. That means he already primed them as witnesses to the crown's inaction, and now counts on their support. What happens next? The king might now see Riel as a threat and try to take him down, or the entire Hayes family. Bernard and Maury become unwilling allies to Riel, and the mage's feelings for Jade are still a mystery. Riel never gave an answer back then. Now the scene shifts to the Atanas forest. Jade smirks, glad she's found so many great friends here. Nina and her dad show up with baskets of berries. Ollie hands her a basket of fresh eggs and timidly asks if it's enough. Even Mong brings peaches in a basket, and Dale drops off a couple of dead animals. Jade's moved by all this help. She shyly scans the gifts and mumbles her thanks for everyone bringing so much. A loud, heavy thud cuts through the moment. All the characters were shocked. Some even gasped in awe, calling it a total monster. A scared shout rang out, probably Ollie's. Jade was panicking, thinking if things kept going like this, she'd lose. The girl was freaking out, wondering where Axel even found this. She compared her own stuff to what he brought. Trembling either from fear or excitement, she grabbed Dale and declared they had to go hunting. He didn't have a choice but to agree. Axel watched them leave, silently noting how close Jade and Dale had gotten, hinting at something more. Ollie smirked, asking if Axel's friendship with them was bugging him. He replied, puzzled, asking what she was even talking about. But she didn't back down, poking him playfully, teasing him to be honest. He snapped back, calling her an old hag, asking what business it was of hers, and told her to go home. Ollie burst into laughter. Classic denial right there. Meanwhile, in the forest, Jade laid out her sneaky plan to Dale. She boasted there was a surefire way to win, hinting at magic. Turns out, she'd already enchanted the lapis lazuli Dale gave her to gain an edge. Dale objected. Did she seriously plan to use magic to win the contest? Jade admitted, flat out, that she did. She activated the stone, summoning fire streams, nearly torching the whole forest. Dale was panicking, yelling at Jade to stop, but she argued it's the only way to catch up to Axel. The guy suggested an alternative plan and told her about the giant bear. He's confident victory's guaranteed if Jade beats the beast, and he even agreed to go with her. But he demands they don't use the magic stone. Jade tightens her grip on the stone, hesitating. But in the end, she agrees to the risky showdown with the bear. The characters continue their journey. Dale casually asks Jade how she ended up in the forest. She replies it wasn't her choice. Probably got pulled here by a magic portal. She adds she urgently wants to leave the forest because her people might be in danger without her. The guy unexpectedly offers to help. Jade is surprised, but Dale calls her his savior and declares he's ready to support her any way he can. Jade asks for help finding the mysterious old man who studies the anomalies. Suddenly, Dale remembers something and asks if it's the old man Axel calls a weirdo. The guy hints he's met him before. The heroine is shocked and bombards him with questions about where he is. Turns out Dale knows where the old man is and promises to take her there tomorrow, since he's got an important task today. Jade mumbles her thanks, but the guy advises her not to get ahead of herself, since it's just a guess. But Jade was insistent because everything was working out for her. Then she hesitated and asked her friend, "Do you think if I asked Axel to leave this forest with me, would he agree?" She thought to herself, sad that if she left, she'd never see Axel again. Dale cut her off and said, "I don't think so." The girl sadly concluded, "Then he'll definitely say no. I've asked him plenty of times to leave, but he never listens." Dale shot Jade a direct question. "Are you really in love with Lord Axel?" Jade panicked and stammered, "I swear no, we're not lovers." Then she sheepishly admitted, "Maybe I sort of attached to him." But she had an excuse. Axel's strong, and she's a mage. It's normal for her to recruit a strong knight if she meets one. Dale sarcastically remarked, "Sure, right, whatever." The guy abruptly cut off the conversation, spotting a bear's footprint. He told her to take note. The footprint's fresh, so the bear's nearby. The guy shouted, "Jade, follow me!" She snapped to attention and sprinted after him. They approached the bear, its massive paws thudding against the ground. Jade screamed in horror. "It's huge!" Then, flustered, she asked, "How are we going to catch it without magic?" Dale confidently declared that Jade should leave it to him, bragging that there's nothing in this forest he can't hunt. Jade cheered him on, shouting support, but a second later, she saw him running away from a bear. Dale panicked, calling the bear his friend, begging it to stop and talk. The guy sighed, saying he thought he could hunt any critter. But that bear's hide was thick enough to snap the spear. The bear roared, and Jade shouted a warning to Dale to duck. A thunderous crash echoed. Jade activated her stone, and a fire blast hit the enraged bear. Jade cheered, "We did it!" She was thrilled, thanking Dale for bringing her here. Now she knew this was enough to win. Later, the satisfied pair hauled their prize to Axel and Jade's cabin. Axel barked, "Wrap this up fast!" Then wondered what the two had been doing together till sunset. Jade beamed at Axel. "Surprise!" The thud of the bear carcass hitting the ground followed. Then she grinned. After that intense match, Jade wins! And started bouncing up and down. Jade bounced, bombarding Axel with questions. "Did I really win? For real?" She needed the guy himself to say it. Axel deadpanned, "Yeah, you won." Dale eyed the spoils from the contest and figured Jade could have lost if Lord Axel had brought another beast. Then his gaze landed on the deer carcass. Axel had bagged and brought it earlier. Dale was confused. Why was that dead animal stacked on Jade's side? He glanced at Axel and Jade, noticing the boy staring at the happy-go-lucky girl. Now it clicked for him. Maybe Axel would actually leave the woods this time. He faked genuine shock and said, "I didn't even think Jade could win." Then he grabbed her by the shoulders and smirked. "Who would have thought a girl could beat Lord Axel?" Dale added. "Axel never lost a contest before. Who knew this day would come?" Then he whispered to Jade, "You should ask your Axel to leave this forest with you." Jade looked confused and asked what he meant, but he shouted over his shoulder, "I'm out of here!" Excited, Jade begged him to stop and explain, but to no avail. Dale left without a backward glance, shouting, "See you tomorrow!" Axel sighed at how late it was. "We should head inside too." Jade lit up at the words. She'd still have to clean up later, but he calmly said, "It'll wait till morning." He taunted with a smirk. "Don't you want to hear why you didn't fight?" Jade eagerly replied, "Yes, of course." The room filled with the crackling fire's light and the sound of burning logs. Jade told the guy he didn't have to say a word if he didn't want to. Axel said Jade kept asking about it, but she replied that she knew and wasn't trying to push him. He said bringing it up would only make the already bad impression of mages worse, but he assured her everything was okay. He explained he wouldn't have brought up the challenge if he hadn't wanted to explain everything. Jade smiled and said, "Whew, good to hear." As Axel drifted into his memories, he stammered, "I hate mages. The first one I ever met was the worst person I've ever known." The guy suddenly thought, how much can a person take before they snap? Now, dear viewer, let's step into Axel's childhood memories. Axel tells the story of his younger brother Claire. One day, he took him outside because Claire had been studying too long. Young Axel figured they needed a break, but on their way to the yard, they ran into their mom.
She pointed at Claire and said the kid was slow and needed to study more.
She added that if Axel really cared about his brother, he'd let him study. The boy wanted to argue, but his younger brother held him back. Claire hesitated but obeyed, trembling. The older brother realized their mom had always treated them completely differently, but he thought it was just her cold, strict nature. Later, he understood she actually hated Claire, and that leads the audience into a horrifying episode. Mom always thought Claire got his weird eye color from the woman Dad was sweet on. Mom saw Claire as a constant reminder of her pain. That's why she treated him like a disgrace, like some past mistake. Axel's little brother always kept his face hidden, like he knew something. One day, Mom went ballistic on Claire, slapped him and yelled, "How dare you charm Axel!" She swore she'd rip out those shameless eyes of his. Then she grabbed a shard of glass. Axel saw it happen and screamed, "What the hell is Mom doing?" He told her to let poor Claire go. "He's not some witch, he's just your son." Mom ranted about all the trouble that witch and her kid had caused. Then she asked, "Is Axel just like his dad, defending that brat and that witch?" That's when Axel realized something was seriously wrong with his mom. He helped his brother up, and they bolted out of there. But while they were running, Claire tripped and fell. Then, footsteps, and a man's voice called out, "What's going on?" A long-haired guy walked over and asked, "Need any help?" That was Enel, a healing mage. Long silver hair, always kept it neat, and that gentle smile on his face. Axel let out a breath of relief and said, "Thank God Enel's here." The boy asked hopefully, almost begging, if the man could heal his little brother right now. Axel added that there's no need to ask why he's hurt. Enel politely replied that, of course, it's an honor to help. Then he calmly and methodically told Claire to stay still. Though the man's voice was soft, the hurt kid flinched, either from fear or pain, and choked out, barely audible, "No!" The older brother asked what the problem was. He insisted, gently but firmly, that Claire needed treatment. The hurt kid was still hesitating. Enel noted with mild sadness that the boy didn't seem to trust him. He added that he couldn't force Claire to take help if he didn't want it, but his wounds looked painful. Axel sharply protested, "No way!" and shoved the kid toward Enel. He soothingly whispered, "No need to be scared. Enel'll take care of the pain." He confidently handed the man the younger brother's hand and asked him to look after him. As he left, Enel calmly assured them he was trustworthy. But for some reason, the kid turned back, staring at Axel with terrifying fear in his eyes. Axel took a deep breath and told Jade that ever since then, he'd brought his brother to Einel whenever their mom lost control of her anger. His voice shook with repressed pain as he admitted that each time, the brother came back clean. No scratches, nothing. Jade asked an honest, naive question. Isn't Enel a great mage? He clearly helped Axel's brother. Makes sense. But Jade wondered why Axel looked so sad. Something bad must have happened back then. It turns out this question was bugging Axel too. He wondered why Claire hated Enel so much. The kid spoke up angrily, asking why his brother was staring at him with obvious hatred and terror. Enel evaluated Claire's wounds again and noted that the kid's injuries weren't as bad as before. He said calmly, but with a touch of command, that he wanted Claire to come into his room. There were days when the younger brother's injuries weren't serious, but he still shook with fear. With sudden determination, little Axel called out to Enel and announced he was going with his brother today. The man coldly reminded Lord Axel he'd already explained that if anyone saw him let both lords into his room, he'd get in trouble. Just as dryly, he added that, plus, their mother was extremely worried about where the heirs were. Enel said if he became the target of her anger, he wouldn't be able to treat Lord Claire anymore. Axel gritted his teeth and replied he understood. He shouldn't have asked, but he wasn't about to back down so easily. Good thing the kid had already figured out where Enel's room was. His brother's reaction was way off, and it had him spooked from the start. He listened closely, and Axel inwardly noted something was wrong. The sounds were strange. Braving to open the door, Axel nearly exploded with fury at what he saw. He couldn't believe his eyes. The kid lunged at Enel with his fists and shouted, "How dare he!" Then he sprinted to Claire, shielded him, and barked, "That mage is a real bastard. How dare he do this?" Enel spoke in an icy tone, flat and emotionless. "I told you not to follow me." Then he told Lord Axel to calm down. It was just adjusting the baseline before treating the kid. Enel declared, all fake calm. "I was going to heal him once the reading was set." Axel was seething. "What baseline? What the hell is he talking about?" The mage let out a cold laugh. "That's the price I charge for a cure. Turns out Enel collects samples in exchange for his powers. Call it a mutual benefit." He smirked, all cynical. "Healing magic doesn't bring a living thing back to how it was. He clarified it only boosts their natural regime." He paused, then dropped a dark warning, like a weather forecast. "Someday, even healing magic won't work." Then he cackled and asked, "Aren't you curious how far a person can be pushed?" Axel gritted through his teeth. "That backstabbing son of a bitch used my little brother as a lab rat." The guy's eyes drifted to the past. He muttered bitterly, "That's when I started avoiding mages." He spat, full of hate and disgust. "To me, mages were just people who'd use anyone for their experiments." Jade thought to herself, she finally gets why Axel feels the way he does after everything he's been through. Axel's lips curl into something like a smile, because now he knows mages can be different. His eyes drift to Jade, and his voice softens. He said she was the example, a girl who used her gift to save people. Jade smiled awkwardly, and said she was just doing what she had to. Then she asked, "What happened to the guy's brother after that?" He said he became a shield between the brother and the world. But Enel vanished. The brother wasn't hurt anymore, at least. Something about the family stopped holding his interest. Or maybe it all got too much. His fists clench. Suddenly, he cuts himself off like a bad memory hit him. He added he thought the nightmare was over. Turns out he was wrong. Everything changed during an expedition. Jade asks, "What happened next?" Axel freezes, then tugs her hair lightly. "That's enough for today." He cuts in. She flinches at the touch, but doesn't pull away. Axel stands slowly. His words hit the ground like heavy stones. He reminded her of the earlier question about the guy hating mages. "That's all?" he said, final. Jade jumps up, realizing she's crossed a line. Then she flashes a warm smile and gives him a sincere thank you for trusting her. A few weeks later, a search party showed up at the edge of a Tanis forest. Riel scans the area with a cold gaze, wondering how the heck Lady Jade ended up in a place like this. If you think about it, it's obvious the kidnappers picked this spot on purpose. He asked the old guy riding next to him if he could definitely lead them through the woods. The man said yes, and warned the trails in this forest change all the time, so they won't have much time to figure things out. Lord Hyas loudly declared everyone in the group should follow this guy's lead once they're inside the forest. Bernard said, "Lord, you should stay outside since magic doesn't work in the forest," but he flatly refused to back down. The advisor wondered why Riel was going this far for Lady Jade. Now, dear viewer, let's dive into Lord Hyas's memories. A year ago, he didn't care the least bit about monster expeditions, but a high-ranking noble had to set an example. At a social event, someone suggested Riel join the next expedition. Hyas snapped his head up and shouted, "That's absurd! Does setting an example mean getting your hands bloody fighting monsters?" He questioned wasn't helping dry regions or cleaning lakes just as valuable. The man respectfully bowed, saying Lord's research amazes the academic world. No one could replace the Hyas family's contributions. The young man smirked coldly and declared no one would force him into such nonsense. Suddenly, his face twisted in disgust. He gripped his forehead and added, he absolutely hated physical activity. Out of nowhere, someone bumps Rigel's shoulder. Turns out it was a beautiful girl who tripped and accidentally hooked onto a guy. She ran up to the gray-haired man and complained that the dress was super awkward, and she wanted to go back to the estate. Hyas froze, because that was exactly when he first saw Lady Jade. After their quick run-in, Riel bombarded the Brown house with letters. But all he got were rejection letters saying Lady Jade was out hunting monsters. So the main character joined an urgent expedition west, and Lord Hyas furiously crumpled up a letter. He couldn't figure out who the hell kept joining these expeditions. Now Rigel, all annoyed, is here in the mud on this western expedition. Then he spots Jade riding her horse. His cheerful shouts drown out the monsters roaring. The rush of emotions sent the guy crashing off his horse. Jade rides up and checks if he's okay. Guess he's not used to riding. She offers to help. Lord Hyas blushes and promises he'll learn. He realizes he didn't even notice her real beauty at the ball. Only here, on this expedition, did he see how kind and smart she is. Now, Lord Hyas stares into the dark forest, holding the reins, silently vowing to find Lady Jade. Now the action shifts to the forest, to Jade and Axel's cabin. He glanced at her clothes and mentally noted they'd been here for a while. Actually, she just couldn't have left this whole time. Axel rolled his eyes, remembering that today Jade had gone with Dale to find that oddball. Wonder if they made any progress? He smiled, wondering if he should maybe buy Jade some more winter clothes. But then he realized she'd leave anyway when the traders came into the forest. Suddenly, a knock at the door. Axel wondered who it could be. It wasn't Jade for sure. The guy grabbed his sword and decided to open the door. At the threshold stood Rigel Hyas Bernard, leading the group searching for Lady Jade. Rigel said they were looking for a woman named Jade. She should be in this forest. The uninvited guests' clothing gave away their noble background. Axel immediately noticed the suspicious circumstances. Jade hadn't ended up here by accident. Axel demanded explanations, but the knights acted aggressively. Then he asked the guests to state their names and why they'd launched the search. A threat followed. How dare the guy hide the expedition's details? What had he done to Lady Jade? The knights decided Axel was guilty of her disappearance. The commander's order rang out. Arrest him. Jade and Dale return from a failed search. It's another dead end. Jade thought Dale definitely knew where to find that weirdo, but now she just wants a hot bath. Suddenly, she hears a metallic clang and strange shouts coming from Axel's place. She rushes over, sees an armed showdown. Guys fighting knights, led by Lord Hyas and Bernard. They're accusing him of being responsible for Lady Jade's disappearance, and that he did something to her. Axel cuts them off, demanding they state their names and explain why they're after her. At the critical moment, Jade bursts in, casts a fire spell, and pleads with Axel to stop. Everything's on fire. She shouts that without Rigel's magic, he can't even kill a bug. Aiming a sword at him is a disgrace for a knight. The whole group joyfully exclaims, Lady Jade's alive and finally found. Bernard's in shock, asking how Lady even survived here and stayed this long. Then he notes they only found her with Lord Hyas's help. Rigel asks the girl, who even is this brunette? Jade introduces Axel, explaining this guy helped her in that weird forest. She's deeply grateful. The heroine offers the travelers to stay at their cabin and rest. Knights apologize for the misunderstanding, but decline rest. Then Bernard delivers the shocking news. Sir Felix is trying to conduct her funeral. The man added that Maury's trying to stop him, but there's not much time left. Jade gasps in horror and asks again, then finally realizes how serious things are. She knew that if the funeral went ahead, her death would be official, and Felix would inherit the family title. And if that happened, even if she came back, it'd be nearly impossible to restore her status, exactly what the sneaky Felix wants. Bernard anxiously reminds them the forest is shifting right now. We need to get out now. Rigel openly distrusts Axel and scolds him. If you really wanted to help Lady Jade, you'd have done it already. He adds that Axel had his own hidden reasons for doing nothing. Jade fiercely defends him. Rigel, you know how hard it is to leave the Atanasian forest. Axel, hearing this, admits to himself he never truly tried to help her escape. It's not selfishness, it's the fear of being alone again. Before parting, Jade tells Axel, well, this is it. Time to part ways. Everyone's got their own things to do. Then our heroine has a heartfelt moment. She blurts out, Axel, let's leave this forest together and become knight partners. Axel freezes in shock at Jade's heartfelt knight partner proposal. Then, steeling himself, he thanks her and says, I can't leave the forest right now. His choice was rooted in a deep bond with the forest and a refusal to face the outside world again where old scars waited. Riel pushes the girl to hit the road, sneering that anyone hiding in this forest is just a bunch of cowards running from reality. That stings Axel's pride, but he clamps up, proving his point. Jade doesn't push it, even though she's disappointed. Just leaves Axel a magical parting gift. Says she stuffed her magic into this rock. Keeps that guy warm all winter long. Also tells him to give her thanks to Ollie, Dale, and the others. They mean the world to her now. As she walks away, Jade silently promises herself not to glance back. She believes they'll cross paths again. It's more than a hope, it's a promise. She's not about to lose Axel. Uncle Felix and his made-up funeral plans are her biggest threats now. Jade's got to fight for her title. Next scene. The Browen estate, where Felix is trying to pull off a fake funeral. Maury goes off. How dare Felix put on a show with an empty casket when Lord Hyas already found Lady Jade's trail? Felix slams back, cold and sharp, tells her to watch her mouth or get tossed out of this place for good. Azeela's panicking, no idea what to do in all this chaos. If the funeral keeps going, Jade'll be back before they know it. Right in the middle of the showdown, boom! A magic blast goes off from nowhere. Flames erupt, swallowing everything whole. Felix starts rambling, totally confused. What happened? What just happened? Whoa, resurrected Jade pops in with a cheerful grin and quips, "Hey, whose funeral is this exactly?" She swears to herself she'll fight off anyone who messes with her status or rights, and no way is she letting go of her feelings for Axel until they cross paths again.